I'd like to call this regular council meeting to order. Before we proceed further, Councillor Noyes, would you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Thank you, Mayor. We acknowledge that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack and the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people, who are beneficiaries of ancient agreements such as the Dish with One Spoon between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect, the two-row wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect, and the Treaty of Niagara, considered the fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous people, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with the Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We have a good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island.
Thank you very much, Councillor Noyes. Would you all please rise for the invocation?
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chambers minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Thank you. The roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Your Worship, Councillor McDermott is absent this evening and sends his regrets. All other members of council are present.
Thank you very much. We have one addendum this evening. It adds two items of correspondence. The first is a proclamation for Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee request that February 16th to 22nd be designated as Heritage Week, and also correspondence from the City of Welland relative to the region's winter cold weather response plan review, and that relates to the temperature at which the region will open warming centers in Niagara. A couple of few announcements. First is just to reiterate that February 16th to 22nd is Heritage Week in Ontario. And the museum will publish a feature in the Fort Erie Observer and coordinate posts in the town's social media pages and on our website. Fort Erie's heritage is also displayed in outreach exhibits in the town hall, atrium, and at the Crystal Ridge and Fort Erie libraries. February is also Black History Month, and that begins on Sunday, February the 1st, and goes throughout the year. And again, there will be some information contained in the Observer, an article from the Museum and Cultural Heritage Committee. Second thing I wanted to mention was just a shout out to Matty Matheson. He's a big star. He's got a couple of television shows. He's a chef. He's got a restaurant here in town. And although all of his television work is done in the States, he repeatedly and continuously refers to Fort Erie as his home. And I have to say that there are some other important, prominent people that have come from Fort Erie, and they haven't necessarily been so firm in recognizing where they came from. And if anybody has seen any of his programs or seen any of his interviews, he is about as down to earth as you could possibly get. And so I just thought, there was a recent article published about Matty, and so I thought we could at least give a little shout out to a local boy who has done extremely well and is proud of coming from Fort Erie. Okay, then the final announcement, I just wanted to make reference to the fact that Councillor McDermott and Councillor Christensen and I, along with our CAO, were in Toronto at the beginning of last week for the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association Conference. We had an opportunity to meet with 7 ministers and parliamentary assistants formally. We also had an opportunity to liaise with several other ministers on an ad hoc basis. We ran into them and were able to try to sway them in our direction with respect to several issues. But the highlights basically were this. The first delegation, which was a conflict with the second delegation, but the first one was with Minister Quinn of Colleges and Universities, and Councillor McDermott attended that along with our CAO. They discussed initiatives that Fort Erie has been engaged in with post-secondary institutions to bring skills training for health, advanced manufacturing, and construction jobs to meet the increasing needs for these human resources in our communities. Highlighted the opportunities related to the aerospace industry and requested assistance for some of our manufacturers seeking to fill labor jobs through training programs. The other delegation at the same time was with Minister Cho of Tourism, Culture, and Gaming, and Councillor Christensen and I attended that meeting. It was a reiteration of our support for tourism destination Niagara initiative recently announced by the province that stresses the importance of utilizing all of Niagara to achieve the goals of increasing visitation, extending visit length, increasing global recognition, and encouraging private investment. We advised the Minister of the initiatives with Niagara Parks, the Peace Bridge Authority, and local Indigenous community to highlight some of the history in our community, the importance of the Marina project, a coal docks project that we're working on at the end of Jarvis Street, and the Peace Bridge Authority's 100th anniversary, which they are working on with both the town and the Niagara Parks Commission. We also spoke about and advocated for renewed funding for the Fort Erie racetrack and suggested that an easier solution would be for them to return the slots to Fort Erie, which we have been working on for several years and which the Premier actually committed to during the 2018 election campaign and then found a way through OLG to substitute slots for direct funding to the racetrack. The Minister reaffirmed the importance of Fort Erie's tourism assets and potential, the need to spread tourism across Niagara, and expressed an interest in the projects that we had proposed and suggested for Fort Erie. He also expressed interest in the initiative that Councillor Christensen had raised about the BIAs in Fort Erie collaborating to boost tourism. We then met with the Parliamentary Assistant, Sanderson, who is with Municipal Affairs and Housing. We received great interest from him with respect to Fort Erie's initiatives to identify strategic growth areas in our official plan, to offer consulting to stalled developments that reconsulting to stalled developments that meet certain criteria, to establish a model for municipalities to access the Building Faster Fund, and address infrastructure deficiencies to unlock housing. We advocated for more affordable forms of housing, funding to meet long-term infrastructure needs, and the need to differentiate housing policies between large municipalities and rural and smaller municipalities. We then also met with Minister Harris of Natural Resources. That focused on coordinated approach to shoreline protection, the need for a health and water infrastructure program, and a Lake Erie Coastal Resiliency Project. Recently, as we're all aware, in 2019, 2022, 2025, and just recently, we've had extreme weather events which have caused millions of dollars of damage to public and private property, and which require action to prevent recurring damage and flooding. Fort Erie has been working collaboratively with the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority to find solutions to these challenges and has proposed a province-wide approach to shoreline protection, including mapping comprehensive flood and erosion mitigation solutions and short-term and long-term funding strategies. The Minister was very interested in participating in discussions and policy considerations relative to these challenges, and the MPCA representatives participated in that delegation and provided important background information. The final delegation on the first day of the conference was with the parliamentary assistants Rasinski and Kanapathy, who are with the Red Tape Reduction Ministry. We discussed a number of government policies that are impeding development of effect and provided some effective municipal solutions. We focused on archaeological assessment challenges and inconsistencies, delays in approval of the town's new official plan, non-value-added regulations with respect to strong mayor power, budget requirements imposed even when the mayor has declined such powers, and obstacles encountered by the developer of an innovative wastewater system solution that would relieve municipalities of costs to service some employment lands which aren't currently serviced. We also talked about a third access for Douglastown, and we proposed simple regulatory changes and streamlining and modernization of the archaeological assessment processes. Day 2, we had a meeting with Minister Trevor Jones of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness, spoke of our recent twinning initiative with Acadia in Italy and the opportunities for trade, foreign investment, and cultural exchange. Fort Erie has linked with Caledon, which has created a model for this type of arrangement, and also the Italian Trade Agency to further discuss potential initiatives. The minister was very interested in all aspects of the presentation, which align with the Ontario trade, tourism, and investment strategies. And then our final formal meeting was with Minister Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health. This was the most important delegation and the last one of the conference. We updated the minister on our Reimagining Douglas Memorial Initiative, reiterated Fort Erie's financial investment over the years in recruiting and retaining family physicians, in establishing a group practice, supporting clinics, providing funding for the acquisition of the land on which the new Gilmore Lodge sits, and contributed to the cost of the new Hospice Niagara build. We also referenced our financial commitment to the new South Niagara Hospital without getting into any details about the status of that. Our main, which I'm sure she's aware of, our main requests were for the minister to commit to the continued operation of the urgent care center beyond the opening of the new hospital, to work with the town to realize the reimagining of Douglas Memorial, and to prevent Niagara Health from permitting any temporary closure of our UCC. And finally, to authorize a 3-physician family health organization where the standard is 6, and that is the model that the government has utilized since family health organizations were established. The minister said that a 3-physician model would have to be a new funding model, which is something that she raised, so hopefully it's something that we can make some headway on. We highlighted the significant difference for patients to access timely healthcare services in big cities and small towns. The minister understands the challenges and discussed the possibility of looking at different funding models to address the issues that we had raised. And then I mentioned before, we had also run into Minister Piccini with skills development, Minister McCarthy, the environment, Minister Dunlop, emergency measures, and the Minister of Municipal Affairs, whose name is Flagg, not Flagg, Flagg. And we also had conversation with the representative with the Ministry of Transportation, who is high up in the staff, but also a Fort Erie native, so that was helpful. Anyways, it was a very productive week, and I thank Councillors Christensen and McDermott and the CAO for being in attendance. Okay. That takes us to declarations of pecuniary interest. And there being none, there are some upcoming meetings. There's a public meeting with respect to an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 19 Derby Road, which will be held here in the council chambers on Monday, February the 9th, 2026 at 6 p.m. There's also a public meeting with respect to an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 4991 Dubanow Hills Road, same evening, February 9th, 2026, here in the council chamber, and it will immediately follow the first meeting that I referenced. And then there's an open house with respect to an official plan and zoning bylaw amendments and draft plan of subdivision for 3092 Dominion Road. That open house will be held Tuesday, February the 10th at 5 p.m. in the Atrium Town Hall. That takes us then to the Regional Councillors Report. Good evening, Councillor Insina.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. It's good to see everybody, 2026. At the Public Works Committee, the Transportation Master Plan was explained and discussed. The plan is to be a comprehensive look at all the transportation networks across the entire region, including the airport, transit, navigable waterways, and the road system. The preliminary cost for the study is pegged at $1.5 million. I did at one point out to people that were doing the study that I would expect that the road coming from Sodom Road all the way down to Ridgeway Crystal Beach would be looked at and examined due to the situation that it's in right now. Not that it's supposed to be fixed, but it's reaching to the point where it is now, if you go down there on the road during the day when the buses are out, you're not going to get through there. You're going to be half an hour just to get down that road. So I asked that to be examined before the plan is set to 2051. I asked that it be looked at much earlier than that, and that they are going to get back to me when during their study. The regional budget was set to be discussed at our February 5th meeting, but that has now been postponed to February 12th. It is anticipated that at that meeting that the budget will be finalized. On a personal note, I anticipate an increase between 6 and 6.98%, somewhere there. I'm hopeful if it's less than that. I'd like to advise council that the budget for the archaeological assessment on Catherine Street for the pumping station has been increased $2.1 million, bringing the total value of that contract to $4.9 million. Plans to move forward in some fashion are being looked at, and I want to thank town staff for their assistance with this matter. It's greatly appreciated. At the Public Health and Social Services meeting, the assets that are available for cold weather events were discussed. I do see that you had a correspondence from the City of Welland. Normally at a cold weather event, when it's triggered, when the temperature hits minus 15 degrees or below, the Public Works Committee gave directions to staff and approved the change in the temperature to minus 10 rather than minus 15. There are currently 288 beds available at shelters. However, once the cold weather alert is initiated, the total number of beds goes up to 468. And I'd like to note that during the cold weather alert, capacity at the beds has been at 95%, so they have not been full. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Encina. Are there any questions of the regional councillor? Councillor Dubanow and then Councillor Noyes.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you very much. And through you to Regional Councillor Encina, great to see you this evening. Good to see you again, 2026. Quick question with respect to the transportation master plan. I'm certainly happy to hear that the region is embarking upon this. I'm just wondering, is there going to be any opportunity or perhaps some dialogue with local municipalities? And the reason I ask is, even though the roads may be regional assets, they are in our community. They do affect the way our community grows and the way we develop. So I'm just wondering, is there going to be an opportunity for perhaps a road show or to come out, get some dialogue on what they're proposing and receive some comments?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, my understanding is that they are going to have a couple public forums, and I do believe they will probably and if they would hope that they reach out to municipalities, because it does involve other road systems and the network, the transportation networks here.
Yeah, I sit on the Transportation Steering Committee, and there is representation from every municipality. They will be doing some public consultation. They will be doing additional meetings. The consultants were trying to streamline and staff were trying to streamline it. We suggested that we need more meetings because we want a greater opportunity for input. And aside from Sodom Road, one of the projects that we've identified here is the need for another point of access between the QEW and Ridgeway Crystal Beach area in order to handle traffic. Sorry to...
No, that's fine. You go ahead.
Councillor Dubanow, anything further?
No, I appreciate that information. The pedestrian friendliness of Garrison Road is also a very, and the cycle friendliness. So certainly, as this process starts, I hope we can have a look at that. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Noyes.
Yes, I'm just going to bring up the condition of Stevensville Road again. Horrible, horrible condition, and it's not going to last till 2028. I do notice there's some patching here and there. It's just not going to last. And 2028 is the year I understand that's going to start. And I imagine they're going to start on the bridge first. So we're saying 2028, but the actual Stevensville Road, the asphalt, when is that going to be fixed? Like, what's going to come first, the bridge or the road?
Through you, Mayor Redekop. That's a question I will bring forward. I have been harping in our pre-meetings for Public Works. I bring this up all the time. I will see if I can get a date and whether it's the bridge first or road first.
And if by any chance, okay, rumor mill, is that it's going to be the bridge first, what would the timeline then be on the road?
I believe there is a indication on the website. I normally don't go by that. I will go by what the I will point it out to the director and get a date.
Okay,
I will
thank you.
bring that back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Councillor Encina. That takes us then to public meetings, and we have a public meeting this evening under the Planning Act. It's an official plan and zoning bylaw amendments and draft plan of subdivision with respect to property known as Alliston Woods Phase 2. This is a hybrid meeting so that people can participate not only here in the council chambers, but through our digital capacity. If you do wish to attend and it's your opportunity to speak up during the meeting, please raise your hand. It depends what kind of device you're using as to where that may be, but if it's your device, hopefully you know where you can do that. Otherwise, the meeting will proceed with council receiving information from a member of staff. In this particular case, it's Devin Morton. Council will have an opportunity to ask him questions if they wish. Then there'll be an opportunity for the developer or the developer's agent to provide comments to council, again, subject to members of council asking questions. Then we'll ask if there's anyone other than the proponent of the application, if they wish to speak in favor of the application. I'll go to Mr. Patton to see if there's anyone in the digital waiting room on that point. And then finally, if there's anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application or raise questions with respect to the application. And again, I'll go to Mr. Patton. Through both of those latter two items, council members may ask questions of whoever comes forward. I'll then ask the clerk if there have been any additional correspondence since the preparation of the report that has come to our attention. He will make reference to that. And then, in all likelihood, we'll close the meeting. The information report relative to this application is on our agenda and will immediately follow the public meeting. So, with that all said, Mr. Morton, would you like to come forward, please? Good evening.
Good evening. Cole's just bringing up the presentation. No problem. Technical issues. It's okay. Give me a little break. Right.
Trying to do something. lyrics of the song.
Sure. What do you want to hear? Oh, that's one I can't do. Anything else? Sorry, where is it? Oh, right there, yeah. Mhm. Oh, okay. Nope, no worries. Is the clicker up here? Yes.
Mr. Morton, we're going to move ahead with the consent agenda while we're getting these technical difficulties sorted out, so if you want to take your seat for the time being.
Sure.
And I'm going to ask, is there anyone who wishes any item removed from the consent agenda? If not, Councillor Noyes, you have the resolution to approve the items in the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Flagg that the council approves the consent agenda as recommended.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of items. Under 11.3.1, the museum, just a typo, I think. It says that the next meeting date was going to be January 14th of 2025. I assume that should be 2026. And then on 11.3.6 in the traffic calming report, it references Point Avenue Road.
It's supposed to be Point Ave. I'm
Should
sure
be
it's supposed
Point Avenue. That was my assumption as well.
Right.
So just those two, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Noyes?
I wanted to comment on 11.3.1, the Museum Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee. Just the minutes, I thought it was that one of the members went to a conference, and some of the information she provided was quite useful and quite informative. But again, one of the things that was pointed out is the cost when the property has to be reinstalled with the designated feature. That was a concern that was raised there too. So, but I thought it was well written. It was interesting reading it, and I appreciate that you went to the time and trouble of providing that to us.
Great, thank you, Councillor Noyes. Anyone else? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to make one comment. I was speaking earlier with Councillor Noyes, who mentioned some of the work that the Crystal Beach Improvement Area is doing in terms of accessibility, and even in some of their future plans in working with the town for the Grove. But she did note some of the work that's been done should be noted, and I do agree. And even Bridgeburg, for that matter, there's been quite a bit of work done there on that program in terms of accessibility. I don't know if Councillor Noyes, you wanted to share anything else from your observations that we talked about earlier.
Councillor Noyes?
I was just very impressed with the amount of work that was accomplished within a. I don't play volleyball, but particularly the volleyball courts and stuff, and I think it really shows the commitment of the business owners there to, and their love of the community. Thank you.
Yeah, very much appreciated. Anyone else? Then, Mr. Peasel, with respect to the Traffic Coordinating Committee, there was an indication that the issue about the naming of the Niagara Parkway, the Niagara Boulevard, had been deferred. The previous meeting, I forgot to mention that there seems to be confusion among the staff as to what this council had directed in terms of that. So from Mather Arch to Bowen Road, here it's known as the Niagara Boulevard. From Bowen Road all the way to Black Creek, in Fort Erie, it's known as the Niagara Parkway. There's a mix of signs. Some say Niagara Parkway, some say Niagara Parkway, some say Niagara River Parkway. It's very confusing. So that was the gist of it. And the Niagara Parks Commission is also working on this initiative. Their material is even somewhat confusing because they sometimes refer to it as the Niagara River Parkway in Fort Erie, which is what it's referred to in Niagara Falls. Sometimes it's the Niagara Parkway that they refer to in Niagara Falls when it's, so anyways, it needs to be clarified because Canada Post has problems with that. So that's the reason for the need to deal with it. And I also noted that in those minutes, there was a reference to speeding on Bowen Road on Garrison Road between Bowen Road and Erie. And I'm sure it wasn't Garrison Road because those roads are all parallel. So could you maybe check that out? Councillor Noyes, you're on the committee. Do you recall what the area was that they were talking about?
I'm thinking it was Bowen Road, but you're right, they're parallel, they don't intersect.
Okay. So after raising all of that confusing information, if there are no other questions, all those in favor of receiving the consent agenda? Opposed, that is carried. How are we making out there, Mr. Patton?
For sure, we're gonna give it a go. I have a backup plan if this doesn't work.
Okay, Mr. Morton, you want to come forward in case we're ready to go?
Tell you to move to the next slide. Gotcha. Aha. 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 Aha.
So now we've got visual, we've got unwanted audio. Bucks.
You're giving all the best parts away.
I don't have mine on.
Close your eyes. Yeah, there we go.
Are you ready now?
I'm
As
ready.
far as you know? Okay.
As far as I'm aware, we're good to go. Okay, good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public in attendance. My name is Devin Morton, and I'm the Supervisor of Development Approvals with the Town of Fort Erie. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide information to Council as it relates to a proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for lands municipally known as an unassigned parcel, or more commonly known as Phase 2 of the Alliston Woods subdivision. The applications were submitted by Upper Canada Consultants, care of Nicholas Godfrey, on behalf of the owners, Mountain View Homes. Well, there we go. Notice of today's public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act by updating the signs placed on the subject lands and by circulating a notice of public meeting by regular mail on January 6, 2026 to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands. The proposed applications are subject to a 120-day review processing timeline. That timeline began the day the applications were deemed complete, being October 15th, 2025, and will conclude the day Council makes a decision. Currently, we are at the public meeting and information report stage and day 103 of the 120-day timeline. So as confirmed here, the subject lands are located within the town's urban boundary and are in the Spears High Point secondary plan area. The subject lands were included in a previous plan of subdivision and are therefore comprised of several lots and blocks, and Phase 2 is approximately 14.31 hectares in size. Subject lands are currently vacant but are adjacent to a locally significant wetland and the following uses. So to the north, we have single detached dwellings in the Queen Elizabeth Way. To the east, we have vacant lands. To the south, we have single detached dwellings and townhouse dwellings, including commercial buildings. And to the west, we have single detached dwellings. As you can see, the draft plan of subdivision proposes to create 53 lots, that's 1 through 53 for single detached dwellings, 60 blocks for 257 street townhouse dwellings, that's blocks 54 through 112, 1 block for 68 stacked townhouse dwellings, block 113, 1 block for a stormwater management pond expansion, block 114, and 1 block for a service corridor, being block 115. Staff note, affordable housing units are not proposed at this time. Here are some conceptual, once this moves to the next slide. I think it might be frozen. Cool. Okay, here are some conceptual elevations of the proposed single detached dwellings. Next slide. Followed by some conceptual elevations of the proposed street townhouse dwellings. Staff have not received conceptual elevations with respect to the stacked townhouse dwelling units. Next slide. So I've also included the applicant's color demonstration plan, which does provide some additional details and clarity with respect to the proposed stacked townhouse dwelling units. You can see them in the bottom left-hand corner there, and the overall proposal. So it appears the stacked townhouse dwelling units will be separated from the existing low-density single-detached dwellings. They're adjacent to vacant and commercial lands and are bound by other medium-density built forms, being street townhouse dwellings, and are adjacent to a stormwater management pond. The existing non-recreational stormwater management pond was approved through Phase 1 and is expected to remain as is, whereas the area proposed for a stormwater management pond extension will be requested to provide a recreational path for the benefit of members of the public. A payment in lieu of parkland dedication will be required to account for the proposed increase in density, and staff note that parkland required to be dedicated to the town through registration of Plan 59M516 is being secured now as it was not conveyed prior to registration. Next slide. So with respect to the previously approved plan, Plan 59M516 as shown here was registered on September 7th, 2022 and proposed the creation of 170 lots for single detached dwellings, 6 blocks for 75 street townhouse dwellings, and 1 block for 59 townhouse dwellings, for a grand total of 304 units. Furthermore, this previously approved plan provides no road connection to vacant lands to the east, as streets D and E are illustrated with turning circles, and the plan confirms Renville Avenue terminates at lot 126 and was not contemplated to connect to Spears Road. Next slide, please. So in this slide, I've put together a comparison of the previously approved Phase 2 and the newly contemplated Phase 2. So the proposal has evolved, and through the introduction of a new use being proposed, being stacked townhouse dwelling units, a reduction to the number of proposed single detached dwellings, the increase to the number of proposed street townhouse dwellings, and an increase in density from 15.239 units per hectare to 26.42 units per hectare. Next slide. So similar to the last slide, I've put together another comparison. This is of the original approved plan 59M516 against Phase 1, which is now under construction, and the proposed Phase 2 and the respective totals of each phase when combined. The number of single detached dwellings has been reduced from 170 to 128 dwellings, whereas street townhouse dwellings have increased from 75 units to 276 units. 59 block townhouse dwellings have effectively been replaced by 68 stacked townhouse dwelling units, and the blended density has increased to 20.03 units per hectare. Next slide, please. So the subject lands are designated low density, medium density, and open space in the Spears High Point secondary plan. The official plan amendment proposes to create a low density residential special policy area that supports townhouse dwellings, stacked street and block, with a density of 24.11 units per hectare. The environmental conservation overlay is proposed to be removed. Next slide, please. So the secondary plan further envisions a grid-like street pattern with Craft Road serving as the main entry into the Alliston Woods subdivision. Connections to the easterly vacant lands are not envisioned in the secondary plan, and Spears Road is illustrated to be closed. Development Engineering and Infrastructure Services staff will support closure of Spears Road only if the recommendation is made in the TIS or if Niagara Region requires it. Next slide, please. The first phase of Phase 2 proposes development of 53 single detached dwellings and 49 street townhouse dwelling units. This is intended to be contiguous with Phase 1. Phase 3A proposes development of 130 street townhouse dwelling units, while Phase 3B proposes development of 68 stacked townhouse dwelling units. Phase 4 proposes development of 79 street townhouse dwelling units. Next slide. So in terms of site circulation, access points are indicated in red. Craft Road at Garrison Road is intended to serve as the main entry into the subdivision, with Spears Road at Garrison Road proposed to be closed, and alternative access points are provided at Action Avenue, Morrison Avenue, Ross Avenue, Rutherford Avenue, and Bradford Avenue. As confirmed previously, Development Engineering and Infrastructure Services staff are not supportive of the proposed closure of Spears Road at Garrison in the absence of a recommendation made in the TIS or a requirement made by Niagara Region. The connection from Alliston Avenue to Bertie Street, it's a very small connection, may be implemented subject to recommendations from a revised TIS that confirms opening this portion will alleviate traffic impacts to Spears and Garrison Road. So next slide. As confirmed in the information report, the subject lands are zoned residential multiple 1 RM1 465H zone, residential multiple 1 RM1 505H zone, and open space OS 506H zone. The applicant has applied to further amend the residential multiple 1 zone, 465 and 505, with a range of departures to facilitate the proposal. Zoning departures are discussed in further detail on the coming next 3 slides. Staff note a revised zoning bylaw amendment was received last week that no longer seeks departures with respect to landscaped area. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I've compared the existing site-specific RM1 zone requirements against the proposal for single detached dwellings and street townhouse dwellings. Analysis of the requested modifications will be provided in the upcoming staff recommendation report. Next slide, please. It looks identical because it is. So on this slide, I've compared the existing site-specific RM1 505 zone requirements against the proposal for single detached and street townhouse dwellings. Similar to the previous slide, the requested departures will be analyzed at a future recommendation report. And lastly, this slide is tailored to the request for stacked townhouse dwelling units to be added as a permitted use under the existing RM1 505 zone. You will notice the base zone does not permit stacked townhouse dwelling units, but does permit a range of medium-density residential uses, including street and block townhouse dwellings. Furthermore, the RM1 505 zone does not establish regulations with respect to stacked townhouse dwellings. Next slide. So with respect to neighborhood context and character, the area is characterized by existing single detached dwellings in an established neighborhood and a mix of newly constructed and under-constructed single detached and street townhouse dwellings in new subdivisions. Next slide. So the area is serviced by existing commercial uses along Garrison Road, including grocery stores, and is supported by Garrison Road Public School, St. Philomena Catholic School, and the Greater Fort Erie Secondary School. Next slide. Here's a rather snowy view of the subject lands looking north. Next slide. A view looking east. Next slide. View looking south. And lastly, a view west from the subject land. So here we have a list of studies and reports submitted in support of the applications. All studies and reports are available for further inspection by contacting the planner assigned carriage of the file and by accessing the town's website. Concerning the FSR and associated peer review, the FSR was submitted to GEI consultants for peer review, the results of which have been received and are currently under review with Development Engineering and Infrastructure Services. Concerning the TIS, Development Engineering and Infrastructure Services staff have concerns and have not yet granted final approval of the study. Next slide, please. So a public information open house was held in the atrium of Town Hall on November 6, 2025 at 5:00 p.m. All property owners within 120 meters of the subject land were notified of the open house via regular mail, and that was sent on October 23rd, 2025. Town planning staff, the owner/applicant, and approximately 11 members of the public were in attendance at the open house. Comments overheard at the open house were related to traffic impacts, road safety, property damage, fencing, tree removal, and a swimming pool. With respect to traffic, the applicant submitted a transportation impact study prepared by Paradigm and dated April 2025. The TIS concludes that all study area intersections are forecast to operate at acceptable levels of service during AM and PM peak hours. Mitigation is recommended with respect to queue lengths. However, traffic signal control is not currently justified. A unit cap of 232 units is recommended that defers roadway improvements until warranted and to mitigate delays projected at the Garrison Road and Craft Road intersection. The transportation impact study further states that southbound left turn lanes are not required. However, this should be reassessed with respect to future development phases or if adjacent developments are proposed that could increase the frequency of left turning vehicles. The report suggests that traffic calming measures may be added subject to recommendations of a pre and post monitoring program to review traffic volumes. With respect to road safety, Spears Road is not currently serviced with sidewalks. The proposed subdivision will be required to provide sidewalks built to a municipal standard on a minimum of one side of all new public streets. Traffic calming measures may be added subject to recommendations of a pre and post monitoring program. And Spears Road is planned to be upgraded to an urban cross section. The project horizon for this upgrade is anticipated from 2033 to 2037. With respect to property damage, any damage to private property during construction is considered a civil matter, and any reassurances required should be obtained from the owner applicant. With respect to fencing, installation of a chain link fence adjacent to environmental protection areas will be required. The subject lands generally abut other low density sensitive land uses and vacant land, and therefore no additional fencing is recommended at this time. With respect to tree removal, the town's tree bylaw 33/2024 as amended regulates the destruction or injuring of trees within the town. Accordingly, a cash in lieu payment or replanting is required for the removal of 30 regulated trees. With respect to parking, no amendment to the parking rate ratios established in the zoning bylaw is being requested through this application. 2 parking spaces will be provided by way of private garage and on-site parking, save and except the proposed stacked townhouse dwellings. 104 parking spaces are proposed to support the stacked townhouse dwellings. With approximately 68 units, that equates to a parking rate ratio of about 1.5 parking spaces per unit. With respect to the provision of a swimming pool, so staff are unaware of any proposed swimming pool. There is, however, a proposed stormwater management pond extension illustrated as block 114. Stormwater management facilities or ponds are not for swimming or public use. Rather, they collect and hold and filter stormwater and snowmelt prior to its release into our rivers, streams, lakes, and other water bodies. Next slide. So this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morton. Any members of council have questions? Councillor Dubanow and then Councillor Noyes. Not working either? Mr. Clerk? Well, it doesn't get picked up by everyone. Yeah, mine's working, so why don't you come on over here?
To sit in the big chair for a little bit. Don't get too. No, I won't. Don't worry. Don't worry. I feel. Thank you very much, Your Worship, from your seat through you to Mr. Morton. Thank you very much. Could you bring up the portion of the presentation that has the site plan from the developer?
The colored one?
Yes.
Sure. Well, if you don't mind, can you bring up?
I'm sitting on the edge of the chair, so I don't get too comfortable. Oh, you just went past it right there. Thank you. Yes. So with respect to Alliston Avenue, where it currently turns, is there any sort of pedestrian or any kind of connection from Alliston Avenue to Garrison Road proposed? It's not on here, but you can kind of look to the south where the road turns.
Sorry, do you mind just confirming, so where Alliston Wood turns onto Garrison?
No, so where Alliston Avenue, actually, you know what, go to the site plan, you might see it better there.
Sure, I just don't have control of the slides at the moment, so I'll wait for Cole to come back. Could you go back, I believe, one slide?
Looking now?
So this is the recent, I would say recent, previously approved plan of
Yes, that's
subdivision.
exactly there. That makes a little more sense. So you can actually see Alliston Avenue. Is that envisioned to actually connect to Garrison Road? Or is it going to continue with the bend right now to the west, where it then turns into Bradford Avenue?
Thank you. Through you, I am not 100% certain if Alliston is meant to connect. I know that the existing right-of-way is there, but when I've done my site visits, et cetera, when you move into the Craft Road, when you take the Craft Road access, you hang a right, it does loop around and there is no connection there. I believe if that is the will of council, that would require some additional thought from the region, as any intersection or any entrance that goes on to Garrison would be under their purview.
And if I may continue, Your Worship, that's perfectly fine, because we had discussed that in the past. I think it was determined that Alliston Avenue, that the region wouldn't be supportive of taking that out, and the secondary plan doesn't envision it either. One thing I think the secondary plan did envision was a pedestrian connection from Alliston Avenue through the existing road allowance to Garrison Road. Is that something that we envision as part of these phases being constructed to essentially make pedestrian access to the commercial area a little better?
Thank you, through you. So Allison Avenue will be constructed to a municipal standard, but I don't believe that the applicant is proposing any additional connection beyond a municipal sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Dubanow? No? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Mr. Morton. Thank you for your presentation. My first question is about, you mentioned about Spears Road and Garrison Road, that the region may have a problem with it, Spears Road going to Garrison, like where it goes now, that there may be a problem with that?
Yeah, thank you, through you to the councillor. I didn't necessarily say that the region would have a problem with it. It's more our own internal staff, infrastructure services and development engineering, are saying that they're not supportive of that closure in the absence of direction from the region or a recommendation made within the TIS. So the way I understand it is, if the region requires Spears Road at Garrison to be closed, we would fall in line. If they do not, we won't be closing Spears Road at Garrison.
Okay. Okay, so where did this possible closure of Spears to Garrison come from? Like,
Yeah, thank you, through you. It's envisioned in our secondary plan. So the Spears High Point secondary plan, if you take a look, it actually shows Spears being truncated just north of Garrison. So through the secondary plan process, that's when that decision would have been made, but understanding that that is well before my time, so I'm not too sure why that decision was made, but generally speaking, those decisions would be made or recommended through our infrastructure services and development engineering teams who look at transportation and road networks, et cetera.
and thank you for that, if I can continue, because there's a lot of people who live on Spears Road now that use that exit. I really would strongly discourage any possible closure of Spears Road to Garrison. My next question is about the stormwater management pond.
Sure.
When was this, because this whole thing started in 2001, right? Like, it's been,
As far as I can tell.
fortunately or unfortunately, I was here in 2001, so I kind of remember all the changes. When was the stormwater management pond envisioned and approved?
Thank you, through you. So it's my understanding that there's always been a swim pond envisioned. This plan received, it was registered, I believe, in 2022. I'd have to look back at my staff report, but I believe that this was registered in 2022. However, council granted draft approval to the subdivision in 2014. So it's been about 12 years, from my understanding.
Okay, so in that period of time, let's say the 2014, the council, the town of Erie has decided that the stormwater management pond should be assets, not basically collecting water. They should be
Yeah.
park-like, and you should be able to walk around them, et cetera, et cetera. Any plans for this particular one? I understand that it's a very steep pond.
So through you, I guess two things. So I did do a site visit to the swim pond because I had similar questions and concerns. What I would say is phase 1 has been registered and received approval. So that swim pond, from my understanding, will be left as is, but the new extension that would be added onto it, staff will be seeking the inclusion of a pedestrian pathway around the perimeter.
So, Mr. Morton, every time you say swim pond,
Yeah, it
you
doesn't-
leave the impression that this is something that people are swimming in. You're
Fair.
saying swim as a.
Maybe that's why people
SW.
think it's a swimming pool.
So, so
Yeah,
I
a
think,
stormwater management pond.
I was going to make that, I'm thinking, now I know where the swimming pool came from. Okay, I will, hopefully that the developer will think about making sure this is an asset. I know that some of the stormwater management ponds have fences around them, and they're definitely not an asset. Going on, the stacked units, you have 104, and you have 104 parking spaces for the, I can't remember the exact number. Are there any handicap parking spaces for that?
Sorry, so just to clarify, I believe it's in around 68 units for the
Yeah, but
stacked.
there's 104
Parking
104
spaces, yeah.
Are any
So-
of those?
So under AODA, there would be barrier-free parking spaces required, given that they're over the threshold. I believe it's 100 units, or 100 parking spaces.
Okay, thank you for that. And you mentioned about tree removal, that there were 25 trees,
30.
30 trees. How many of those trees are town trees?
I don't believe any of them are town trees.
Well, in the report, it talks about public trees. What's a public tree if it's not a town tree?
Public tree would be a town tree.
Okay, so how many of those public trees are in this report? That have to
Not
be
sure what you're
removed?
asking.
How many town trees are going to be removed?
I don't believe any of them are being removed.
in your-
The TPP may, it may document that there are town trees, but I don't believe any town trees are being removed. I could circle back to you with that answer,
Okay, because
but it likely is in the staff report.
yeah, I think it is in the staff report. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, just a few questions. The Mississaugas of the credit have indicated in their report that they're not supportive of the archaeological study. Could you enlighten us a little bit on that and what you might know?
Yeah, through you. So Mississaugas of the Accredited First Nation are circulated on all of our development applications. The comments that I received from them said that they were not engaged in the preparation of the ARC assessment and therefore do not support the findings. What I will say is our internal staff who oversee those items under community planning have not expressed the same concerns.
And if I may continue, Your Worship?
Yep.
I didn't see any recommendation or comment from either one of the school boards in the study. I know that in the past, we've had an indication that our schools are at capacity, and I'd like a little bit of your input there.
Thank you. Through you. So I actually spoke to some of the staff responsible for those comments today. I'll be frank, they missed the circulation, and they're trying to get us the comments as soon as they can. Those would be included in the recommendation report.
Thank you. On page 2 of your report, it indicates that you'll be looking for daylight triangles at the corner of Spear and Regional Road 3. would those be properties that this developer would own? It would seem to me that those are current properties that would be owned by someone else.
And so you're referring to at Spears and Garrison?
That's correct.
So through you, I can't confirm if those lands are owned by, I'd have to look into that.
Okay. And then there's another indication that the developer acknowledges and that offers to purchase shall indicate that the traffic levels are going to be affected. Do you find it curious that we're asking these individuals to do that, and yet the other individuals on Spears and some of the other developments are not being asked or would not have had that same opportunity to be aware of the traffic implications of this development?
So through you, if I understand the question, are you asking if there should be warning clauses included in those other folks' properties?
I think what I'm trying to ask in a question is whether we are properly taking into consideration the traffic implications to the current residents, and we are forcing that traffic implication on them, but we're warning the individuals coming in to purchase new.
Yeah, I guess, I think I understand what you're getting at, and I would just say that's essentially the way development works in the sense that we can't, effectively go back and now include those warning clauses within the existing neighborhood and folks who have purchased within that existing neighborhood. The only way to address that is through new development by way of a subdivision agreement and a condition that we put into the subdivision agreement. What I will say is, from my understandings, and I would defer to the Director of Infrastructure Services with respect to the TIS, is my takeaway was that the traffic impacts are not so great as to recommend denial. It's the intersections and the streets will still operate at acceptable service level. So with that understanding, I don't think the TIS is, making the recommendation that this can't proceed without the cap. Yeah. So I think I understand what you're getting at, and I wish there was a nice way to kind of address existing folks that live in that neighborhood and what they're going to experience. But unfortunately, there simply isn't.
I like an honest answer. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Christensen.
I'd just like to go back to the numbers. So there is a plan that has, I believe it's a total of 218 units. What is the status of that plan at this point?
So are we, through you, are we discussing phase 1 and phase 2? It might be helpful if I can bring that slide back up with.
That would be, yes.
Yeah,
That's
with
the slide
those,
where you show the difference in the,
sure.
and the change.
Essentially where we started and where we're at.
Yes.
Okay, if you could go to the slides, are towards the beginning, probably slides 7 or 8. So the next one, here we go. So the column you see on the left-hand side is going to be phase 1 and 2, essentially what was approved by way of Plan 59M 516. Go to the far right, and you've got essentially what we're dealing with today, with phase 1 and phase 2 being combined. So essentially you're going from 304 proposed units to 472. And if you look at the columns in the middle, phase 1 on the left there really kind of gives you an idea of what's happened today. So phase 1 is composed of those 75 single detached and 19 street townhouse dwellings, of which some are constructed and occupancy has been granted for some of those.
I think it may be the other one where you've got single detached going from 98 down to 53. So I think it may be not the combined,
Okay, yeah, if we can go back one more slide. So this is just a comparison of the previously approved Phase 2
Okay.
versus what's being proposed today.
Okay, what is the status of that, the legal status of that? You're saying it's previously approved?
Yeah, so that has been registered. They have satisfied all the conditions of draft plan approval, and they've registered that subdivision. They could start building today.
And so they are coming back with going from, I think it's 218 to 378 units, which is a 160 unit difference on the same site, which is a 73.4 increase in the number of units on an approved draft plan of subdivision.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell just by looking at the two columns here, the original approval was 61, and now they're at 257.
What I'm clarifying, I guess what I'm asking is that I think I've said this in this council chamber more than once, I am not opposed to development, I support rational development, but if less than 2 years ago, I think it was April 26th, 2024, we're now January, so 21 months ago, so is there a rationale as to why building didn't proceed and we're coming back with a complete rethink of Phase 2?
Sure, so I think the rationale is contained in the applicant's PJR. I wouldn't be able to recite all of the applicant's rationale off the top of my head, but that's where you would find that information.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation amongst all the technological issues that were leading to it starting. You mentioned that there's 68 town stacked towns, of which there's 104 parking spots. How many visitor parking spots are included in that? Do you know?
Thank you, through you. So those details haven't been confirmed at this time.
And the other question I had, you had mentioned that there were no affordable housing units within the subdivision, which I assume means the standalone freehold homes and the stacked towns. That being said, though, these units would be permitted to have accessory dwelling units under provincial legislation if a purchaser of the home later wanted to put units in those as well?
Through you, that's correct.
Okay, and then the question I had, I realize there's no images for the stacked townhomes, but just trying to walk through what I've seen in terms of many different types of stacked townhomes in different locations. Do these have basements as well, or are they slab on grade townhomes?
Yeah, through you, I would just say very few details with respect to the stacked townhouse development have been provided to us at this time, so I can't confirm.
So there is the potential, possibly at this point, for the stacked townhomes to also have ADU units within those individual parcels as well.
Through you, that's correct.
Okay, and that's why I raised that concern, because the 104 parking spots does sound very good for 68 units, but when you start putting in accessory dwelling units in the future, it could become problematic. Sorry, and I'm just looking here at a couple of my notes because some of them were asked by other members of council. The last was the, on some applications, we've put sunset clauses because we're trying to get development to happen as opposed to development that gets an approval, sits for 1 decade or longer, and then comes back and either builds or makes a modification and then starts with whatever the direction is from the province of that day. Has there been any conversation with the developer in terms of a sunset clause on this modification ask?
Thank you, through you. No, I haven't had those conversations yet. It's the first time I've heard of a discussion around sunset clauses, but that is something that I can speak to them about.
Yeah, and the only reason I ask, this piece of property has an existing plan of subdivision that has been approved. To Councillor Christensen's point, that development never did move forward for whatever reason they chose not to, but now they're coming back with an increase. So I'm at least of the mindset that there should be some conversation about sunset clause. I'm certainly leaning in that direction, especially to Councillor Christensen's point about wanting development, but we want development to happen when it happens, not sit on the shelf for a lot of time. So that was just one other comment. And then the last, the Environmental Advisory Committee, I believe they were out in the past and they looked at the woodlot, but I couldn't see, and maybe I missed it in the report. Were there any comments from EAC with respect to this modification?
Thank you, through you. So I did not receive any comments from that group through natural heritage or community planning.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and if I could just circle back to the sunset clause, I mean, is that perhaps something that we can get the details now so that I can have that discussion? Are we looking at like a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 3 year, or is that perhaps a conversation we can have offline?
Certainly a conversation, and other councillors, I think our plan over the past couple of years has been a 5-year sunset clause.
5.
If something were to happen where a developer wasn't able to meet that obligation because of something greater than the developer, the infrastructure as an example, I think there's times where an extension is permitted, but the idea is to get shovels in the ground. And really, my opinion is that a sunset clause actually further supports the provincial direction for more homes quicker, faster, or whatever the slogan is of the day.
Sure. And just so I'm clear from a staff perspective, at the culmination at the 5 years, would that expire the approval of the subdivision, or would it also have the effect of reverting the lands back to the previous zoning?
That's probably a good conversation to have, but I don't know how we could change something that's already been given a planning approval on. My thoughts would be that it would revert back to the subdivision that was approved, but you're the expert and staff would.
Sure, I can have those conversations amongst ourselves.
Thank you.
Yeah, back to you, Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. Just through you to Mr. Morton, on the issue of the stacked townhomes, I'm assuming those are going to be condominium units?
So through you, tenure hasn't been established at this time, but generally speaking, from what I can tell on that color demonstration plan, there are common elements, and that's how you would accomplish that, is by way of a condominium for common elements.
So, and with respect to that, a draft plan of condominium would have to come back to council before we get to that point, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one thing that I noted was that we're calling this Craft Road North. And I'm wondering whether the town has anywhere that we indicate where north and south start, because I know in Ridgeway we have Ridge Road North that starts on Dominion, and now we're going to do it on Garrison. I just, something to take back for thought, maybe more than anything else.
Yeah, through you, that's a good question. I will follow up with our GIS and IT departments are responsible for street naming and addressing, so I can follow up with them in that regard.
Anyone else? Okay, so I want to get my oar in the water here. In terms of notification to residents, do you know how far the notification would have penetrated the properties on the west side of Spears Road?
So essentially what we do is when we do a circulation, we use our GIS department, or data I should say, and we will select every parcel that is subject to the application, and then it establishes a 120 meter buffer. So it should be 120 meters from whichever parcel is closest to wherever you're referring to.
Right, so on that basis, there would undoubtedly be people west of Spears Road, particularly in the development, whatever it's called, that would be impacted by potential changes here, including closing the intersection of Spears Road and Garrison, who wouldn't have a clue what's going on.
Yeah, that's correct.
And the traffic impact study, that is performed by somebody that the town hires or somebody that the developer hires?
Through you, so the TIS is prepared by someone of the applicant's choosing.
Right. And do we peer review that?
Through you, I would just defer to Director Peasel to discuss whether we have TIS peer reviewed.
Acting Director Hazel, do we?
The mayor, I do believe our town engineer reviews those.
All right, because I think that whatever the traffic study says, it needs to be peer reviewed. I'm shocked that the secondary plan, which was approved when none of us were here, would suggest that Spears Road and Garrison intersection would be closed.
I found it interesting as well, and I have started some of those conversations with the region to see where that came from.
Implication would be, I think, and correct me if, I guess I think the implication is, and you can confirm this or not, anybody that wanted to go east from this subdivision, if Spears Road at Garrison was closed, would have to go through part of this subdivision or phase one, either phase one or phase two, which means you've got new traffic coming into phase one, which residents may not have anticipated, and you've got new traffic potentially coming through phase two, which is a brand new subdivision. Have you contemplated, while you were doing the work on this report, have you contemplated the impact for those who live in phase one for the additional traffic that would be created by 155% increase in density in phase two, and the impacts of that traffic moving through that neighborhood in phase one, plus any additional traffic coming for the potential closure of Spears Road?
Sure. Through you, so I guess I'll just start by stating like my, I guess, role in this is strictly as a land use planner. I'm not a transportation engineer. I'm not a traffic specialist. So with respect to those impacts, we defer to our development engineering and infrastructure services group to, assess that, give us their professional opinion, which then informs our opinion. So unfortunately with that, I would have to defer again to the director, acting director Peasel.
So, just that I'm clear, if there were 472 units being developed where previously it was 304, regardless, there's going to be more traffic with 472 units than 304, correct?
Again, I am not a traffic engineer, so I can't confirm or deny what the impacts would be. I know at a certain point, once you pass a certain threshold, sometimes trip generation actually comes down because the TIS makes the assumption that people share vehicles, there's public transit that's, available, etc. So I'm really not, I would say, even qualified to answer that question. That would be something best handled by a transportation engineer or a traffic specialist.
So that
But I understand ultimately what you're getting at, Ms.
That answers
Mr.
exactly
Mayor.
why I think we need to peer review the traffic impact study, because, common sense would suggest that more units without a robust public transit system means more vehicles. More vehicles means more traffic. More traffic means there are going to be impacts on people who live in the neighborhood through which that traffic is flowing. But I hear what you're saying. You're not a traffic expert, nor am I. In terms of sewage capacity, I can't recall, is this one of the reports where there's concerns about potential sewage capacity?
So my takeaway in terms of servicing is that there are no capacity constraints. The region did reflect in their comments that the Alliston Woods pumping station needs upgrades to accommodate growth, and they have offered conditions of draft plan approval to address that. And I believe part of the reason those capacity constraints aren't coming up on this application as they are on other applications along the Garrison Road is because it already received draft plan approval a number of years ago, so that servicing was likely already allocated.
You mentioned that at one point that there's a request to remove an EC overlay on part of this. So wouldn't that be something that you would want to notify EAC about so that they could consider that?
Yeah, so through the circulation process, community planning, including natural heritage, is circulated, and they bring those applications forward to EAC. So like I've confirmed earlier, I haven't received any comments from them, and again, it could be because this application already has draft plan approval and there's been no change to the limits of construction. So that could potentially be why, but it's something that I could follow up with our natural heritage staff to confirm.
So just for clarity, so the removal of the EC overlay would be on land that's already been approved for development?
That's correct.
So they would have had to have the EC overlay removed in any event?
They should have.
Well, how can you build on it if it's got an EC overlay?
That's why I'm saying they should have had that removed. In my opinion, it would have been cleaner and tidier to do it all at the same time, but it doesn't seem as if that's what was done here.
Okay, you indicated that you're waiting to hear comments from the school boards with respect to school capacity.
That's correct.
And I thought at one point you mentioned that Spears Road is supposed to be upgraded.
Yeah, I can flip back here. So Spears Road is meant to be upgraded. I believe it's between 2033 and 2037. So let me just find it here.
We're contemplating closing Spears Road at Garrison Road. Would there be a need to upgrade it?
So I'd have to defer to Director Peasel as well. Again, I'm not qualified to answer questions with respect to closing of streets and upgrading them.
Acting Director Peasel, do you have any comments?
Through you, Mayor, the only comments I have on this project so far is from our municipal engineer that said due to a lack of detail in December 2025 peer review, he just commented on the Allison and the sewage capacity, nothing on the traffic.
Okay.
And just to circle back, so the project horizon for that upgrade is 2033 to 2037.
All right. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. I'll save those for the applicant. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Morton. Now, I would call on the applicant or the applicant's agent to provide whatever comments they wish to us with respect to this. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, am I on? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff, and thank you, members of the public. My name is Nicholas Godfrey, and thank you for having me tonight. I'm a senior planner with Upper Canada Consultants, and I'm going to provide, hopefully, a brief presentation that doesn't have too much redundancy or overlap with Devin's fairly comprehensive presentation. I have a presentation slide deck, so I wonder if I could put that on. Thank you. Can I click through? Oh. Sure. So I'm here to provide a presentation for a joint official plan zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for lands known as Alliston Woods Phase 2, which is a continuation of Alliston Woods Phase 1, repurposing the existing registered lots that have not yet been constructed. And I'm here on behalf of Mountain View Homes, and I'd just like to note that Mountain View Homes purchased these lands subsequent to all the zoning approvals and registrations that have happened on these lands. And so they are looking at these with fresh approvals and are not, we're not the applicants for any of the previous approvals that happened on these lands. So the subject lands known as Alliston Woods Phase 2 are roughly 14.3 hectares in area. I'll kind of maybe skip through this area, this slide, because Devin already gave a fairly good overview here. But just to note that from a policy perspective, the subject lands are located within the Fort Erie urban area. within the delineated built-up area per the Niagara official plan, within the Spears High Point secondary plan area under the town's official plan. And they're currently zoned RM1 465 and RM1 505, which permit a range of housing types as well as zoned open space. So as Devin explained, we're looking to revise the approved draft plan of subdivision, or now registered plan of subdivision, and tailor the zoning to address some of the deficiencies with the lot based on current market changes and current market realities. So we're looking at a total of 378 units, which include 53 single attached dwelling units, 257 street townhouse units, 68 stacked townhouse dwelling units, and 1 block for stormwater management pond extension, and 1 block for service and corridor and multi-use trail. Next slide, please. So the modified plan proposes an additional 160 units over the registered plan, which was draft approved in 2014, making a more efficient development layout, and will include a mix of housing forms to better adhere to current market conditions, allow for dwellings with a variety of price points. The subdivision is planned to be completed in 3 to 4 phases, allowing for natural progression of construction based on market conditions and absorption rates, as well as to manage traffic and required upgrades of the Spears and Craft Garrison intersections. Next slide, please. So we discussed the traffic impact study. This phasing plan is a result of the traffic impact study. So phase 2 will consist of 53 single attached homes in 49 street towns, and will be the first phase of the phase 2 development. This is designed to be contiguous with phase 1, providing a seamless extension of the existing community. The phase 3A proposed extension will be 130 street towns, and phase 3B is 68 stacked towns, and is a block in the plan and subject to future site plan approvals. Phase 3B's development on block 113 can proceed concurrently with phase 3A, or it can be deferred. And this approach gives the developer the flexibility to respond to market demand and the pace of sales from earlier phases. And then phase 4 with 79 street towns is the last phase of construction. And this phase's timing is designed to allow for the assessment of traffic management based on the traffic impact study. The traffic impact study suggests a phase 2-3 cap of 232 units, which is roughly in keeping with the original approval, which is about 218 units. So it's managing traffic in a phased approach that allows for a pause and touch points to then reassess expansion with subsequent phases through reassessment through a subsequent traffic impact study. Next slide, please. So the proposed detached lots will consist of 2-story single attached family dwellings and a mix of traditional and modern designs. Use a variety of building materials and color. Roof pitches and prominent front porches to provide interest in an attractive streetscape. The proposed street townhouses also provide for a blend of traditional aesthetics and modern aesthetics, using a variety of building materials to create visual interest. Each unit features a prominent entrance highlighted by a portico, while recessed garages minimize their visual impact on the streetscape. Furthermore, the use of paired driveways provides for more continuous green space in the front yard, and for boulevard tree plantings, contributing to an attractive and green neighborhood character. Next slide, please. The official plan amendment is required to make minor modifications to the permitted land use designations to facilitate the proposed development, including increase in density, introducing a townhouse use, the siting of the stormwater management facility, and to correct the environmental conservation overlay to the existing environmental block. Next slide, please. And the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to maintain the site-specific zone categories and make minor revisions to lot frontage, front yard and rear yard provisions for single detached dwellings, and minor revisions to lot area and side yards for townhouses, and add provisions for stacked townhouse units. And next slide, please. So in support of the application, the following studies were submitted as noted by Devin: Stage 1 archaeological assessment, Stage 1-2 archaeological assessment, planning justification report, noise feasibility study, functional servicing report, transportation impact study, 2 environmental technical memos, and a tree inventory and preservation plan. Overall, the studies concluded that there are no negative impacts associated with the development of the subject lands, and include recommendations for the implementation of the plan based on each of these reports' findings. Next slide, please. So in summary, the development proposal seeks an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision to permit the construction of 378 dwelling units consisting of 53 single-attached dwelling units, 257 stacked townhouse units, 68 stacked townhouse dwelling units, 1 block for stormwater management facilities and pond, and 1 block for servicing corridor. The revised plan adds an additional 160 units to the original approval in response to shifting market trends. And I just would like to note as well that actually I made a little list here of some of the questions that came up to Devin that I might just quickly run through, maybe in anticipation of some of the questions I might receive. So starting with the traffic impact study, the suggestion to close Spears Road did not come from the developer. It came from recommendations from staff, but there's been some turnover from staff in the time since we made the original application, so it was scoped with staff who are no longer at the municipality. So there might be a little bit of a disconnect between the assumptions that were put into our traffic impact study and then, but we're also not looking for the closure of Spears Road. So that, just want to make that clear. Second, municipal pedestrian right-of-way to Garrison. That is not contemplated at this time simply because it would require an expropriation through private land. So that block that separates Craft Road to Garrison is not under the developer's ownership. The swim public safety facilities, or the swim stormwater management bond, sorry, I'll skip the swim terminology. So there's a public safety element to stormwater management facilities that needs to be taken into consideration. So there's fluctuating water levels and there's liabilities associated with that. So of course, we will look into maybe finding a compromise, but just to note that there are liability issues with stormwater management facilities and creating them as recreational opportunities. Your question, through you, Mayor, your question regarding town trees, I believe that's relating to, there's some public right-of-ways that have been draft approved, and there's some trees in those right-of-ways. So they need to come down to extend the roads, and that might be what's referred to when you're talking about public trees. So they're trees that we can compensate throughout the development through landscaping, but they would be in the municipal right-of-ways and just hadn't been cleared yet in the extension of those roads. Through your Mayor, regarding the archaeological study, so the province recommends consultation up to stage 3 approach. We've done a stage 1, 2, and the archaeologists did not recommend any further archaeological studies. So typically we wouldn't engage until the stage 3 application. That's consistent with provincial guidelines. The stage 1, 2 recommends no further work is required. And it's in keeping with the archaeological study that was done on the original approval, which found no elements of historic significance on the subject lands and was received provincial clearance. Regarding daylight triangles, those daylight triangles are on lands that are not owned by the client. So those are not, we haven't actually fully unpacked that comment yet, but those areas are not under the client's ownership. The TIS warning clauses, yeah, so those, unfortunately, as Devin mentioned, just the phasing of development, because we received approvals for phase 1 and subsequent lands, those become an onus on the developer in subsequent phases. So there isn't a retroactive way of incorporating those phases into the warning clauses into development. Yeah, so through you, Mayor, the sunset clause as well, that's something we could look at. However, I think those tend to be not necessarily the solution to encourage development. They can often inhibit it, but I think that's something that Niagara Falls has had experiences with. It doesn't necessarily spur development, but we can talk about that with Devin afterwards, but I would recommend against a sunset clause simply because, as in the case of this development, it moves through so many hands, it moves through so many owners. As we're trying to clear up the zoning today, it adds a lot of complexities to development that I think actually is an inhibitor rather than something that promotes development. And again, through your Mayor, the EC overlay, that came with the application as we received it. It doesn't line up with the registered approval that we've received to date, so we just wanted to align it to the existing environmental block. And then through your Mayor, the TIS recommends traffic calming measures, and it also recommends a phased approach. So we're looking at phasing development contiguous with the approvals we've received to date, and then as we expand into subsequent phases, we can reevaluate the TIS to make sure that we have proper approvals in place so that traffic is managed responsibly and consistently with existing development in Garrison Road. So that is my presentation. I hope I checked off some of those boxes for you, but I'm available for questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Mr. Godfrey. Councillor Dubanow.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and through you, thank you very much for the presentation this evening. I'm just wondering if maybe Cole could move back to one of these slides that showed the phasing. Yeah, in there. Yeah, that'll do right there. Hope that's fine. Just with respect to this, I believe you've got, I believe it's William Avenue and Renville Avenue up there, and I realize that we had previously approved cutting, I believe it was Renville Avenue off to create that new street there, but my question is this, and I'm certainly confused by this, but looking at this development application and looking at the mix of singles and towns that we have, I'm curious, why was the decision made to have block towns back onto existing residential neighborhoods on Spears Road, rather than putting singles there and locating the towns somewhere else? I'm very confused by that.
Sure, through you, Mayor. So the interface is rear yard to rear yard. So I think when you introduce a rear yard to rear yard interface, if you got a 6 meter setback to maybe a 7.5 meter setback, there's a compatibility there. It's not as an objectionable if you're having them front onto potentially singles, maybe from a compatibility perspective. But if you rear yard to rear yard, you have fencing in place, I don't find the impact is necessarily as drastic. Well, from a compatibility perspective, it's an amenity space backing onto an amenity space. So I think there is inherent compatibility, and generally in design, we look at interfacing rear yard to rear yard in this way.
I certainly appreciate your input, but looking at this from the perspective of the residents who already live there, I would argue it's quite different when you're looking at individual homes with spaces between them. That's what you expect versus having a single wall of multiple units that's broken up. So with respect to that, I appreciate your point, but I disagree, and I'll be bringing that up with staff. I did want to get another clarification, though. Did you mention that traffic calming is envisioned as part of this subdivision based on the phasing and how traffic flows?
So through you, Mayor, yes. So the initial phasing is meant to introduce traffic at a level that was consistent with the original approvals. But the comments we've received back from staff incorporate elements that they'd like to see in the updated traffic impact study that do include some calming measures. So we haven't had a chance to review and bake those into our assumptions yet, into our traffic study yet, but we do understand that there are some proposals that we can look at incorporating into the plan.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Actually, one or two possible questions, and thank you for your presentation and some clarity to the questions. If approval was given on this proposal in the timeline that the municipality is dealing with, what would be the anticipated timeline for shovels in the ground on all 4 phases?
Through you, Mayor. So it's hard to predict with the current market right now, and that's why we're looking at phasing. I mean, as you know or are aware, the market is quite dry right now. So that's why we propose this phased approach, that we can do phase 1 within I don't want to give a firm timeline, but that's the initial phase that we would test out the market and then figure out when subsequent phases could come online. So it's unfortunately dependent on market conditions, but that's why we're phasing it as well, so that we can test the water, test market conditions, and then figure out what's going to be a viable product and what's going to actually work.
Understand, and I understand as well in this climate, morning to evening can be different from where you started the morning of, so totally get that. The other question I just had, you had made a comment about sunset clauses not being ideal for speeding up development, and I just have a question with respect to that. What other tool do you think council could use on an application like this to get shovels in the ground quicker?
Through you, Mayor, that's a very open or a very difficult question to answer, because it's I could go down a rabbit hole and try and spur some thoughts. But I think You know, an efficiency in approvals is always welcome. So allowing approvals to move at a quicker pace, allowing, you know, developers to work with what's marketable and what will work, because it's, again, it's a really tricky market to chase, and you're trying to plan ahead, and then the market can just turn on a dime, and suddenly you have land holdings and products that there's no market for. Like, as we know, the condo market is really not working right now, so a lot of projects I'm finding are turning to rentals, which is a good thing, but it changes the dynamic of the market. So I think generally just allowing that flexibility and those efficiencies with development to proceed is I think, a better solution than sunset clauses, which I think can tend to make investors and banks nervous about investing when they see something has a deadline on it. They might just walk away from it, and then it doesn't spur the development. It actually freezes it up and gives people cold feet.
And thank you for the clarity on that, but you can appreciate from council's perspective how dealing with applications that come in and sit on the books for decades at a time, that's certainly not working as well. So I was just curious what your counter would be to a sunset clause that you had mentioned was not conducive, but certainly appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Councillor Christensen.
You heard my questions to Mr. Morton, and I'm still somewhat puzzled. I heard your explanation with respect to the changes from 21 months ago, and now you've just explained and I appreciate. I'm not an investor, but I understand that. I understand the challenges of dealing with hard product that's very expensive. And it's allied to Councillor Lewis's comment, but it's in, you're looking for ultimate flexibility, which means, for me, I'm hearing, in 10 months, 20 months, 25 months, you're going to come back with other changes. And I have real concerns about that from a planning perspective, when our responsibility is to produce, is to support our community, build homes that will bring new residents and house existing residents, and have a stable environment. And frankly, coming back after 21 months is of great concern to me.
Okay, Councillor Christensen, this is for questions. That's okay. That's okay.
Through you, Mayor. So I would step back and note that these original approvals occurred in 2014, which is a long time in the housing market, and the client purchased these lands after those approvals. So I'd argue instead that what we're doing is bringing these up to speed with current contemporary market realities. You know, I understand the frustration when things seem to change a lot, but this undertaking here is a very expensive undertaking, so it's not done flippantly, it's not done lightly. All these studies, all this time, I think we brought this to pre-consultation, I think back in 2023, 2024. So it's a slow machine to get moving and up and running, and we're getting close to a point at which we're, you know, locking in on an approval that aligns with a market product. But I do want to emphasize that there's a difference between the approvals to date and then the client and their ownership of the property. They inherited these approvals, and we're just trying to bring them in alignment with their product. It's Mountain View who do a very attractive product. They're a responsible developer, and they really enhance it.
I have Mountain View products in my ward. I'm aware of how the quality,
So it's to bring it into alignment with those market challenges. And again, it's a slow process. It's not, I would argue it's not being done flippantly. It's done with a lot of thought and foresight. So thank you for your question, though.
Anyone else for Mr. Godfrey? Councillor Flagg and then Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Two quick questions. Am I correct that in part one or in phase one, that will include all of your single-family homes?
Through you, Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, and your very last slide appeared to indicate that you feel that the exit to the north to Birdie would be something. There, the roadway going to the north. Is that something that you anticipate and is part of your presentation?
So through you, Mayor, that comment came out through development engineering about assessing the connection to Birdie. My understanding is it's a requirement of the secondary plan. Development engineering staff want us to assess if that connection will do anything to address potential traffic impacts on the subdivision. So I don't think there's a hard objection one way or the other, but it is baked into the secondary plan. We have been requested to address it in our updated traffic impact study. So it's going to be actively looked at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Mr. Godfrey. My first question is, the single homes, are they going to have a double driveway? The picture kind of showed that
yeah.
it's a double driveway.
Through you, Mayor. I don't know if we've gone to that detail yet, where we get down to the site servicing grading plan detail about setting driveways. I anticipate that they may, but I don't think we're looking for any zoning relief for driveways at this time, so it will be in alignment with the zoning provisions.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is that the conceptual drawings you had
Yes.
had double driveways.
Through you, Mayor, I believe it's just because it was a double garage, so it's just matched to the garage.
Well, that's what I
But it's
meant.
conceptual, but I think we'll still do some refinement as we set the actual building footprints and the site servicing grading plan.
Is there any plan in the actual planning of the building, like the architectural, to create any accessory units in these buildings?
Through you, Mayor, that's always an option on some of these single attached, especially when you have the room for it. It's not been contemplated at this time because we're dealing with the bigger bulk of just trying to get, the footprints established. But where it makes sense, and if it's something that can be offered to a potential future owner, that as part of that ownership, they can have an ADU, that tends to be something that's part of the custom build for these kinds of developments. But it's not being inserted into the process yet, but it typically comes later in the process, but those permissions stand, and I believe that there likely may be some uptake with those ADUs.
In regards to affordability, I don't imagine that the single homes are going to be affordable. In some of the townhouses, are we looking at any affordable units?
Through your Mayor, no. So this is not the type of development that necessarily lends itself well to that kind of affordability. The way we try and address that is through adjusting lot sizes, making a more affordable product, and then potentially you have options for ADUs. But my view, unless you have a direct government subsidy, it's difficult to provide affordable product to the market. And especially in a location like this, where it might be more appropriate to locate those kind of affordable units closer to services and amenities and multimodal transportation options.
Thank you for that. Considering the changes you're requesting in regards to setbacks and lot side and everything else, you would think that you could have made them more affordable because you are asking for changes in the zoning.
Through you, Mayor, I believe overall the price product will be more affordable than the original approvals. The original lots right now are quite large, and to try and bring those lots to market would be a very expensive product. So creating a smaller lot, getting more of the footprint, you create, in essence, a more affordable product, but being more efficient with the land use, given current land use values.
I have a different opinion on why we're making the lots so small. But anyway, in regards to the stormwater management pond, I'm aware that there's a liability in regards to the construction of the stormwater management pond. It has to do with the grading, if it's too steep or whatever. You're asking council to consider an additional 160 units, but are you guys not willing to consider changing the stormwater management pond so that it could be a more open asset?
Through you, Mayor, my earlier comments, I said we could look at a compromise and just start to unpack that, but that's a technical detail I think we need to work out with staff to ensure that we're meeting liability concerns and also something that also works for the public as well. So it's something that we would look at and entertain.
Okay, thank you. There's just a few more questions. In regards to the trees, there are 13 public trees or town trees, and there are 18 private trees. When you're referring to private trees, are you referring to the ones that the developer who actually owns the property now?
Through you, Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, so the 13 public trees are, you said there may be on roads that you're going to be creating and things like that.
Yes, through you, Mayor, if you were to overlay the street network over the existing lot right now, you'd likely see some of those trees cropping up into the road extensions that have been draft approved.
If the town says no, we don't want our tree cut down, what happens?
Through you, Mayor, they are draft, these are registered lots, so they do have permission to clear those out as part of that draft, or that part of that registration process, because these need to have public frontage onto public roads. They couldn't be landlocked or orphaned lots. They would need to have public street-facing frontage.
Okay, that's a That's an interesting take on it. There was one particular tree that was brought up as a fairly large tree on, I could think it's called, the lady in her email was called it on Ross Avenue. And she says it's a very large tree. Do you know if that's one of the trees that are going to be taken down?
Through you, Mayor, I believe that is one of the trees that's coming down because it's right in the way of the road allowance.
And
we would be,
are you familiar with that tree?
I have seen pictures of it. I do know the tree.
And how big of a tree are we looking at?
Through you, Mayor, I don't have the numbers, but I believe if I look through the tree inventory preservation plan, I could find the dimension. But, you know, the developer could get building permits and extend that road, and that unfortunately the tree's going to have to shift. But I think with the landscaping plan, what we can do is accommodate some of those tree removals and put them in the urban, fit them around the urban form so that they are there for posterity rather than, I think, in the way of what is a draft approved or registered, subdivision. So there is a landscape plan that will be part of an approval process, and we can accommodate trees through that landscape plan.
I'm going to be, okay, you're asking for another 160 units. If we would go back to the original plan, the original site plan, and the original road formation, would any of those trees have to be removed?
Through you, Mayor, I believe so. I believe all of them have to be removed.
Okay, even the one on Ross Avenue?
Through you, Mayor, I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lewis.
One just quick question and point of clarity. You had mentioned that your client had inherited the property with the previous zoning. And when I think inherited, I think of either genetics or succession by law, but your client did buy the property knowing the zoning of the property and what was previously approved when they purchased the property, correct?
Through you, Mayor, they would have known to some extent the zoning in place.
Okay, so they purchased the property, they didn't inherit.
Through you, Mayor, yes, so that was maybe a confusing word choice, but it's meant to convey that there was already pre-existing approvals that they didn't seek approvals for that were done under a different, in a different planning area. Thank you.
I appreciate the clarity, and in this room, words do matter, so I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Godfrey, I know you've been up there for a long time, but I just had a couple of questions or a few questions related to your frequent reference to current market realities, current market conditions. What kind of market research does your client do in terms of Fort Erie and what's needed in Fort Erie?
Through you, Mayor, so they do a lot of active market research. I don't have those figures on me. I'm sure I could get them to provide an assessment of what they're looking at and how to price these. But, you know, for them to make sound business decisions, they're going to have to do that market research. They need to know what the absorption rate's going to be. They need to know what's going to be able to actually sell and not just build, you know, lots that aren't going to move. So,
yes, I appreciate that. And what kind of research have they done with respect to the need for affordable or attainable housing in Fort Erie?
through you, Mayor, I would have to confirm with the developer if that is part of their thought process. My understanding is they have there's not every development can check every box. So there's different projects for different type of applications. This is a product that may be in an area that isn't necessarily the perfect fit for, I think, for an affordable development, as I mentioned earlier. So it's a different type of product, different type of application. And, but as I mentioned, there may be opportunities through the provision of, attainable or adjusting price points based off of lot reductions or through the incorporation of ADUs.
Well, some of these lots are being reduced to 10 meters.
Yes, 3 meters. So that is to make the product more attainable from a purchase perspective. You often have to run a different model to make it affordable from a purchase perspective, like Habitat for Humanity. It's a different model. So this is a different product, different model meant for a different market.
Yeah, no, we've been quite willing to reduce lot sizes for single-family homes. I find it interesting that the first phase of Phase 2 development would be single-family homes. Is that because of the geography of the layout of the subdivision, or what's the rationale for that?
Through you, Mayor, just the continuity with existing development, and they felt that there's still a product there that people want, and that there is still a market for that. Whether that extends to the whole site, I think they did their research and found that it's not something that would carry across the whole site.
And I presume that you, and hopefully your client, are familiar with the large number of townhouses that have been built in Fort Erie or proposed in Fort Erie over the past 5 years, to the point now where just like your subdivision, it's 5 times as many townhouses as single-family dwellings that are being proposed. I take it they've got the understanding of that, and B, somehow that fits into their market research?
Through you, Mayor, I'd have to confirm with the developer, but that is my understanding, is it fits in with, their forecasting and what they think can actually sustain some of these projects.
Right. And I'm sure that you understand as a planner that while your client is looking for something that he can afford to build, he looks at the market condition realities. We as a council have to look at what's in our neighborhood or our community, and we have to try to maintain the vision that we have set forth for growth of this community. You understand that?
Through you, Mayor, I do understand, and there are also provincial housing targets that also are being balanced as well, and provincial guidance towards infill and development. So I understand it's a tough balance, but I think over time you see communities move towards greater density over time. And this is one way of doing that, where we are contiguous with the single attached. We're introducing new housing forms and new typologies that are contiguous in terms of we have material selection, color choice, the way we design them is complementary and compatible with existing residential, and then transitions towards something, the Stack Town product, which is addressing a different market segment, a different market need.
Guess I'm almost caught speechless. But I appreciate you have a job to do, and you're doing a fine job, Mr. Godfrey. Thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application other than the owner or the owner's agent? I don't see anyone here. How about in the digital waiting room, Mr. Patton?
Worship, I can say there's nobody in the digital waiting.
No one in the digital waiting room. So we went through all those contortions and no one's there. Okay, so then I'm going to go to anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application or who has questions they wish to ask of council with respect to the application. Please come forward.
So, William Thomas, 4065 Village Creek Drive. I don't really have a question. What I want to do is I want to thank, first of all, town staff, and then members of council who, I think, this is the first time I've seen it so intentional that you have all raised the issue of affordable housing. I think that is commendable for all of you. I think that it's the night of the open house or the public meeting. I also raised the issue of affordable housing with the developer. The response was not satisfactory to me. To have it raised so often by all of you has been quite gratifying, actually, and shows and exhibits a slight shift. And I would like to encourage the council and town staff and developers to think about where affordable housing fits into the mix. And I agree, I think development is a great thing. I think the idea of introducing new types of housing into developments in this way is actually quite wise. I think that while we're looking at moving from single family to townhouses to stacked townhouses, we should also be thinking about how we work affordable housing into that conversation. And so I don't have a question. I just want to commend council and staff and to encourage developers to put that on their radar in the same way as they are putting other market issues on the radar. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Thomas. And I suppose we could indicate that you're the chair of the Affordable Housing Committee.
You can do that.
Okay.
There's no questions.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address council with respect to this matter? And there's still no one in the digital waiting room, Mr. Patton?
No, Your Worship.
Mr. Clerk, have we received any late-breaking correspondence with respect to this matter?
Yes, through you, Your Worship, we did. Excuse me. We did receive correspondence that council was copied on and included on. The individual is Faith Blackery.
Faith Blackery?
Thank you, from Canada, Ontario.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I'm going to declare this public meeting closed, and then we're going to move to consideration of PBBS 03-2026. Councillor Christensen, would you like to
Thank you, Your
move that?
Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that Council receive for information purposes report PBBS 03-2026 regarding the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments and draft plan of subdivision applications for lands located at unassigned parcel 0-10844 Morrison Avenue, Alliston Woods Subdivision, Phase 2, Fort Erie.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. I'm going to work on this tree thing. From what I understand from the developer is that a site plan has been approved, so where the roads are going, if the road's going here, you got to take down the tree if there's a tree, and it's automatic.
So let's let Ms. Dilwaria comment about that.
Your Worship, through you to the councillors, there was a draft plan that was approved which shows the road network. If the applicant is changing the road network, we can definitely look into the tree and what trees are being removed. But if it's based on the previous subdivision, then we have a very limited opportunity to comment on that.
Thank you for that explanation. Do we know if the road pattern has changed?
I would like to defer that to Mr. Morton.
Mr. Morton, can you come forward? Do you know if there's been any change to the road pattern?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. I know the tree that you're referring to. I've met with that member of the public a few times and on site, and she's pointed it out to me. There is no change to that portion of the road network that was originally approved and what we're discussing today.
If I can, you're anticipating that I'm talking about one tree. I'm talking about the 13 trees. Are any of them?
So my understanding is, and perhaps we can just cut to the chase on this, if we've approved a draft plan, that means that there's different treatment for trees than if there hasn't been a draft plan approved. So there is a draft plan with a road network. Unless the road network has changed, we're obliged to cooperate with the developer for the removal of the trees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so then what Councillor Noyes wants to know is, have there been changes to the road network that would save any of these trees that you're aware of?
I would have to look at the 13 trees that you're referring to. I don't know what 13 trees you're referring to.
Okay, Councillor Noyes, you still have the floor.
I thank you for that. I think all my other questions have been answered. I just want to throw out there, like, I think this closing Spears Road to Garrison is a red herring. I can't see anybody in their right mind thinking that's a possibility, considering the amount of traffic that road, Spears Road has. I just can't imagine where that came up in the secondary plan. But other than the secondary plan that was umpteen years ago, has it ever been supported by anybody, anywhere?
Through you, I can't answer that question. I don't know everybody everywhere, so that's a really difficult question to answer. And what I would say respectfully is that staff don't pass secondary plans. Secondary plans are passed by way of bylaw, which is passed by council.
And I can appreciate that. I'm just thinking I think it may have been kind of lost in the whole report, because I can't see that ever being a possibility. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I have several comments with respect to this proposal for staff that I'm hoping that they can take back and maybe work with the developer. And I also want to extend my appreciation to Mr. Godfrey. I think his candor and his presentation was very very good, and I hope we get to see him again here in front of council in Fort Erie. But with respect to the comments that I have about this proposal for staff, there is one portion of the report, and perhaps it's because I got a bee in my bonnet because I'm a little concerned how this has ended up before. But I note here under section 9.1, the town comments, when going in about the functional servicing report. And I have a lot of concern about the mention of, and again, my spidey senses go nuts because I've seen where this goes, but there's mention of potential holding provisions. And I just have a few questions for staff, Your Worship. With respect to this mention of the holding provision, it's my understanding that are we not in the recipient of a peer review already on their functional servicing study?
My understanding is it hasn't been reviewed yet.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we are in receipt of the peer review that was received in December, and it is currently with development engineering staff and infrastructure services staff for review.
Okay, and if I may continue on that, Your Worship, with respect to the concerns, are these local municipal infrastructure sizing concerns, or are these regional infrastructure sizing concerns?
Yeah, thank you, through you. It's my understanding that it's regional concerns.
And if I may continue, Your Worship, have we received any comments with respect to how the region feels the infrastructure is capable of handling this?
So we, through you, we have received comments from the region. They are included in the appendices of the staff report. It's my understanding that they have expressed concerns with respect to upgrades that may be required. However, they're addressing that by way of recommended conditions of draft plan approval.
And my understanding is they have not suggested or recommended a holding provision. Is that correct?
That's correct, through you. My review of regional comments, I don't remember, or I don't recall coming across a recommendation to implement a holding provision. That's something that's coming from our staff.
And if I may, Your Worship, with respect to the fact that we haven't yet reviewed the peer review, and with respect to the fact that the region does not feel that their infrastructure, which they are responsible for, is at risk of requiring a holding provision to hold this up. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but don't you think you're putting the cart before the horse by suggesting that we need a holding provision and potentially scaring people off when we don't even know if that is a thing yet, especially when the region's not recommending it?
Yeah, thank you, through you. I understand where you're going with this. So I would defer to Director Peasel to discuss any recommended holding provision that would have been included in development engineering or infrastructure services comments, and to the reasons why when the region is not recommending that holding provision.
Well, and if I may,
Get Acting Director Peasel to comment.
I think he certainly can. I think we need to hear that at the recommendation report stage, though, once the peer review is reviewed.
Sure.
I think that would be more appropriate. He's welcome to comment.
Yeah, no, I think you've made your point. We don't need to prolong this.
I agree with you. And if I may, Your Worship, I have some comments just for staff with respect to how this comes back to us in the recommendation report stage. I want to extend, like I said, my appreciation to Mr. Godfrey, to you, Mr. Morton, to all the staff involved in this. This has been a big project that has happened in multiple phases, and I think the approval for this, when it first starts, goes back many years. I know, even speaking to John Hill, who used to sit on council here, he was always really excited when he heard about Alliston Woods, because it was something even during his time on council that he'd been talking about. So it's nice to see this gap in that area of town kind of fill out, and have residents there walking. I live off Spears Road, so I'm familiar with the growth in there, and there's more residents, more children. It's nice to see. I do have concerns, though, and I appreciate my colleagues on council raising them. Certainly the traffic. I've had a different opinion on traffic impact studies than my colleagues on council on many of occasions, particularly since residential development tends to not have as great of an impact as commercial development, and it tends to be very time sensitive. But I'm telling you right now, anyone who lives off Spears Road and tries to turn left there in the morning knows that just with the subdivision that went in, Spears Estates in 2016, how much of a difference it's made. And with respect to Spears Estates, I live in that subdivision. There were warning provisions on our purchasing agreement in 2016 about potential F-level service levels on Garrison Road at that time.
Right.
So we are now 10 years ahead. There are already dozens more houses. We have one extra entrance on Craft Road. I'm of the opinion, one way or another, whether they close Spears, whatever, we need to look at these intersections for improvements, because this is not going to work. If you're talking turning lanes to prevent queuing, that to me tells me that intersection control is going to be necessary, and especially with that long strip along Garrison Road, there's no traffic lights in there. It just becomes a speedway. You have to use the center turning lane to make left turns. I'm very skeptical of that result, so I'll be looking forward to that. I've already mentioned my comments with regard to the FSR. I'm questioning why we would go down the road of a holding provision if the region doesn't approve it, but I'll leave that for staff at the recommendation report stage. And with regard to the density, I've expressed this concern many, many times, and His Worship and other members of council have. I can understand and appreciate where developers are coming from. There is a practical reality to what land costs and what servicing costs. And if you put more units into the same amount of space, it will make the units cost less. And from a perfect, profit margin perspective, and from a points perspective, the more units, the more you can and make off it. It's not just beneficial for the developers. There is a practical reality that if you spend the same amount of money on infrastructure but have more connections, it does end up being cheaper for the end users. But I'm telling you, I am so frustrated with these just landscapes of townhomes. And, whether we need to look at our development charges bylaw, whether we need to look at smaller single lots. My preference is I would always, the lots are already smaller here, but my preference is, small lots with singles, semis if you're going to go down that road. But seeing the amount of townhomes in this, I think it's just, I think it's crazy, particularly when they're backing onto existing homes on Spears Road, and there was an opportunity to have some singles there for interfacing. I appreciate Mr. Godfrey's comments, but as a member of council who is the interface between the developers and staff and the public at large, that's just not how the public views it. They will see a wall of siding back there, which is a much different view and a much different landscape looking out your backyard than looking at a single home directly behind you or two homes directly behind you with spaces in between. I certainly hope staff have an opportunity to speak with the developers about this. I think Phase 4 in particular would be prime opportunity to look at perhaps some narrow lot singles, getting some semis in there to kind of address the housing mix matrix that we're trying to achieve here on council. I understand we're not going to stop every townhouse development that we get in town, but I think we need to be a little less heavy on them. And I've always said my preference has been 50-50 for units. 50% of the units, if you're going to go that far, would be townhomes, and then 50% other things. This well exceeds my comfort level. So that's my comments with that. The other point I want to raise as well, and my colleague Councillor Flagg had mentioned it, we really need to look at a connection to there's different road connections here. There's ample opportunity for pedestrian connections to Garrison Road. There's opportunity for pedestrian connectivity even back to Spears Road using some of the unutilized road allowances, and even a connection to Birdie Street. So I have a lot of concerns about this proposal. I have a lot of faith in staff that they're going to hear our concerns tonight, take this back to the builder. I know Mountain View has a reputation in the region. They work in the region. They're not a Toronto builder. They are a Niagara Region builder, and they've been around a long time. So I'm certainly hopeful that they can hear the concerns that we have here at council tonight, and that we can come up with something that addresses our concerns while allowing them to continue to put together subdivisions that are very well regarded in the region. So those are my comments, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dubanow. Anyone else? Mr. Morton, since you're up there, I know that it's not something that strictly can be regarded in terms of density, but I would like you to take, before you do the recommendation report, I would like you to take a look, if you could, at the density, if you include where additional dwelling units could go. So some of these single-family homes, some of the towns, perhaps, so that we've got a better understanding of what the true density could be.
Right.
And that will also give us an opportunity to contemplate how many vehicles are actually going to be in this subdivision, and where are they going to park?
Yeah.
Because this is something that I think we need to be concerned about. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the vote then. This is the recommendation report. Information report.
Not quite.
I was getting all ready to vote. Yeah. Okay.
They'll be very happy.
You may sit down, Mr. Morton. No need for you to be up there. Okay, so now I can't turn this off. All right. All those in favor of receiving the information report? None opposed, so that is carried. Okay. That then takes us to the next item, which would be report PBBS 04-2026. And Councillor Flagg, is that what you have?
That's what I have. I move by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that council approves the amendment to the town zoning bylaw 129-90 as detailed in report PBBS 04-2026 for land known as 1405 Englewood Avenue, and further that council directs staff to submit the necessary bylaw.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, Your Worship, just this is just with respect to my earlier comments about townhomes. I just want to. I wasn't here for the original information report stage. I understand there were some comments about the townhome relative to singles. I can see here that the recommendation report is now for 3 singles. I think that's a good example of how the dialogue and working back and forth to find a commonality between our vision for the community and what the residents want relative to what the developer. I think that's a good example of how this process can work. So I'm going to be supporting this. Crescent Park's a single-family neighborhood. The lots are a little smaller, but they're still single-family homes. So I will be supporting this. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Christensen.
I'd also like to commend the developer and the staff for being open, the staff for actually negotiating, and the developer for being open to accepting the vision. And I would agree. I looked at the drawing, I looked at the application and thought, yes, in a number of years it is different, but it is consistent in being a single family and with a yard and kids can play and all of that good stuff while still intensifying the actual number of units on that lot. So, I also will be supporting it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Dilwaria, something that I should have mentioned when Mr. Morton was still here, but I thought his report was excellent. I thought that Mr. Banfield's report on this matter is excellent. I thought the next report on PBBS 05-2026 was excellent. So I know that the staff members are here. I'd like you to pass that on to them as well. There was a question when we had the public meeting about rats on this property. Do you know if that's been addressed or whether there's been any action required by law enforcement?
Your Worship, I had a chat with Mr. McCaffrey before coming in for council. So we have not received any complaints from, like, nobody has actually registered a complaint against rat from that neighborhood. But as of now, we have only received 5 applications, the people who have used our rodent control program, but we haven't received any formal complaint from that area regarding rats.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, you folks ready to vote? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us then to PBBS 05-2026. Councillor Lewis, you have the resolution for that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Christensen that council denies the amendment of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 12990 as amended as detailed in report PBBS 05-2025 for the lands known as 3331 Dominion Road, Fort Erie.
Questions or comments? Councillor Christensen, Councillor Dubanow, Councillor Noyes.
Your Worship, I think at the public meeting I expressed my grave concern with respect to the original proposal. My concerns have not changed with respect to the intensification at a level that is inappropriate for the site. My concerns with respect to the fact that the proposal is to go from an R1 to an RM1 with significant changes to our existing provisions, and particularly with respect to the internal road structure, the fact that there is there are challenges with respect to garbage pickup. That area, for those of you who don't know, abuts the Canada Post post boxes, which are on the road. There would be significant challenges, and with respect to any private pickup arranged as well. So I really support the staff's recommendation with respect to that. And given the weather that we've had in the last few days, I want to raise an issue that I think is quite critical in both this and any future planning. The parking allowances that are proposed in this application, to me, are somewhat fantastical, given the fact that we do not have reliable or intense public transit in this community, through no fault of our own, but that's the way it is. And therefore, people will drive, and there are significant distances, as detailed in the report, to major shopping areas and to parks. And the fact that what limited parking would definitely be taken by prospective residents in this area. And my question, my issue is that this town, for 4 months of the year, does not permit on-street parking overnight. So I thought about Christmas and New Year's when people want their families to come. Burley Road and Dominion doesn't have any capacity for on-street parking now. Well, in the summer, the 8 months. It definitely doesn't now because we don't allow it, and there's nowhere for people to go. So there is a huge issue, and I think it's something we really need to look at and reflect on in all of our future consideration of parking barriers and issues, because it's a grave concern. We do need cars. People have cars, and in the winter, it's impossible to find anything. I have a driveway. I'm fortunate. I'm blessed. And I have a driveway that accommodates more than 2 cars. And I have a garage. For the people we're expecting to house, and I'm one person who lives in this house. A family is going to have at least 2 cars, in my opinion.
Okay, Councillor Christensen, stick to the report.
Okay. Sorry. So, yes, I am simply reinforcing my my objection to the lack of care and consideration to this community that's contained in this application.
Thank you very much. I think we know where you stand.
Yeah.
Councillor Dubanow.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I think that's a sentiment that I share. I'd go so far as to say, and look, I mean, I look at the built form, I look at the proposed architectural renderings. You know, I look at the area here. You know, something like this might make sense on Garrison Road in a commercial area. You know, with some tweaks to the parking and other things. Might make sense perhaps even on Gorham Road where you have commercial amenities and kind of a commercial streetscape. To propose something like this, in my opinion, at the corner of Dominion Road and Burley is asinine, to put it polite. I don't know how this makes sense. I don't know how it's consistent with the community. I just looked at the architectural renderings and I thought, my God, something like that at the corner there, what are we doing? And I'm very happy that staff are not in favor of this. My question, Your Worship, for staff with respect to this, we don't see a lot of denials come forward from staff. I can count the number that we've received during my tenure on council on one hand. So I'm just wondering, are the applicants pushing to get an answer from council because they don't like the comments and where things are going, or are we at the end of the road, or is just, that's my question, because we don't see this very often. Usually we come to some sort of agreement, we figure something out. I'm just wondering why it's come to this point.
I think it's the latter. We're at the end of the line, are we not, Ms. DeLoria?
Yes, Your Worship. So we have tried to work with the applicant quite a lot on this application, but we have not been successful. And we see the vision of the council. We have just done our official plan. The policies are pretty clear about the build-up and the massing, etc. So that was the next step from staff perspective to recommend denial.
And if I may, Your Worship, thank you very much. I fully support staff on this. I think it is reflective of council's vision. Even individuals who, we all have different tolerances and different feeling for development and what our vision may be with slight differences. But I think on this one, I don't like to speak for my colleagues, but I think on this one, we're all in agreement. So thank you very much, Ms. DeLoria, for your work on this.
Thank you. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with all the councillors' position and the staff report. I'm just remembering that when this thing came before, I don't think we've ever seen a report like this that asks for so many exceptions to the rules. I mean, I would think it'd be easier to say what they do agree with than what they didn't want changed. So anyway, I'm glad that the staff is not recommending this, and I'm supportive of all the councillors' comments, and I'm pretty sure we're all going to agree with the report.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the recommendation? None opposed? That is carried. That then takes us to new business inquiries. We have a couple of resolutions. Councillor Christensen, you have the first one with respect to conferences.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that in accordance with the requirements of the Expense Allowance Policy Bylaw 142-06, as amended by Bylaw 114-2024, Council authorizes the following: attendance of Mayor Wayne H. Redekop and Councillors Joan Christensen and George McDermott at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Annual Conference, AMO, held at the Rogers Centre, Ottawa, Ontario, August 16th to 19th, 2026, as they had previously attended the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Annual Conference, ROMA, in Toronto, Ontario, January 18th to 20th, 2026, and further attendance of Councillors Nick Dubanow and Tom Lewis at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Annual Conference, AMO, held at the Rogers Centre, Ottawa, Ontario, August 16th to 19th, 2026, as more than 3 members of council have expressed an interest to attend.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. The second item was an inquiry, response to an inquiry There is no action needed to be taken on that, but that provided insight into what happens with the EV stations if the library decides to terminate the agreement. Are there any other items of new business or inquiries? Before I do that, I forgot to mention during my announcements our appreciation for the excellent work that the town crews did and the contractors with respect to snow clearance during the storm. We had, I think it was like 32, almost a third of a meter of snow that fell over that period of time. And I know that our staff, the public doesn't know this, but our staff meets when these types of events occur, sometimes at 6:15 a.m. I didn't even know there was a 6:15 a.m. Also, late into the night, in the evening, there was a meeting yesterday evening, there was a meeting this morning. Last week, there were meetings early in the morning. I don't know there's 6:15 because I don't usually go to bed until 1. I know there's a 1 o'clock, but please, please, I'll tell you a story about that. Please pass on to your team, Acting Director Peasel, our appreciation because it was excellent work. So any other inquiries or items of new business? Councillor Dubanow and then Councillor Noyes.
Yes, Your Worship, on the topic of the snow removal, which was excellent, I did have one resident reach out with a concern, but it was rectified. I think our snow removal is excellent, quite good, especially if you travel around the region, you see what happens elsewhere, and I'll just leave it at that. But on the topic of excellent service provided during the storm, I did want to mention one thing which I had shared with Council earlier this morning. As part of the snow removal, and things like this happen, the snow got pushed up on a hydro box on my neighbor's, between my neighbor and our property, and it broke the lid off. And that happens, you got to get the road cleared, the snow pushes up, it's no fault of the operator, and I don't want anyone to hear it that way. But the reason I raised the story is, myself and my neighbor looked at it while trying to dig out this morning, and we were wondering what to do, you call the town. I said nope. I sent an email to Canadian Niagara Power's customer service email address, and I swear, no more than 20 minutes later, there was a CMP crew outside digging around that box, and within an hour, it had been fully repaired. And I tell you, people see my comments about power outages and other frustrations that I have. I can be critical when things don't go well, but I also believe in heaping praise when people go above and beyond and act in a way that is exceptional. So I wanted the community to hear that from me tonight, that I was very, very pleased with what CMP did this morning. Everyone has seen my comments on social media when there's a power outage. It's not always just about that. They do amazing work. And I'll tell you, those two guys out there, they had to dig over a meter of snow surrounding that box to actually get the lid back on and fix it, and they did it. And so I've let council know. I've even reached out to the general manager at CMP, dropped them a line, but I wanted to share that, just the community, everyone pulled together during the storm, and I wanted to share that. I did have one other question, though, if I may, Your Worship. And it's with respect to the trailer storage on Garrison Road in front of Gilmore Lodge. And I know for better or worse, I've had a lot of concern raised by residents about why the trailers are there, what are they doing, and I believe the answers that staff have provided us have been good. We know that they're destined for another location. It's temporary storage. I do know, though, that a concern was raised by another resident recently about more items being placed on that property. And I'm wondering if there's any update or any information. And the reason being, I think our entire community is very sympathetic to underhoused and unhoused individuals in our community and the need to address it. I don't think anyone would have issue with using property for storage, but as a member of council, we were never looped in on this. We were never told what was going on, and it's been frustrating for me as a member of council to have to try and get these answers by residents who are concerned, particularly when if there was that kind of facility in our community, that's probably not the best location for it, right there at the gateway. So I'm just wondering, do we have an answer on, I believe these are all supposed to be out of there by April, but is there any word on whether additional items have been put there? Because that's a concern residents have raised with me.
CAO McQueen?
Thank you, through you to Councillor Dubanow. I did correspond with Ms. Koenig, who is the Commissioner of Community Services with the region, to confirm that no additional trailers were moved to the site. They were moved there initially, and you're correct, there's a March-April timeline to have them moved to their final place outside of Fort Erie. But she did confirm that since they've been put there, there has been no additional trailers added to the site, and they've agreed that they will have them removed as per an agreement with us.
I appreciate the answer. Thank you very much.
Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll get on the snow thing. Yes, I think everyone's done a really good job. And I will say this is not the one that just happened, but the one before that. It was the first time I have ever seen the town actually removing the snow from the corner of West Main and Stevensville Road. They actually had a truck there. They were putting the snow in the truck, because I know I brought it up on several years that there's no place for the snow to go, because there's the sidewalk is right on the street. The kids line up there, that's where they cross. So I really appreciate the fact that the snow was actually picked up and moved, as opposed to stacking it up, which really was not very good. My next question, kind of do with the snow, but not really. Canada Post. I'm now a proud owner of using a community mailbox since Ott Road has been fixed. The community mailbox is totally inaccessible. I'm not talking about the box and the key. I'm talking about the box itself. It doesn't face the sidewalk. It faces the road. And we know where the snow goes. I'm just really surprised. Is that the typical thing for a community mailbox, not to face the sidewalk?
Yeah, no, they face the road because people usually come with cars, but Canada Post does typically remove the snow. Mine was the same today. It was 2 feet of snow. You couldn't get it. But I'm wondering if, Mr. Peasel, could you maybe make a contact with Canada Post, find out when they're going to be clearing the access to the community mailboxes?
Okay, but even if they remove the snow, I'm talking, let's say it's July and there's no snow, you still have a curb to get over, and there's gravel. I don't understand why it's not facing the sidewalk. You have to get out of your car anyway, because there's no way you could possibly access
So
those.
might I suggest that you're on the Accessibility Advisory Committee?
We'll be
Could
on
you
the
maybe
agenda
pursue
tomorrow.
that? Because this is what they do everywhere. They face the road because people drive up in their car and then get the stuff. Many places there isn't a curb.
They have to load them in too.
They load them in from the back, yeah. Okay, so your Accessibility Advisory Committee maybe can
Yeah,
pursue that.
it makes no sense to me. You can't access them from your car anyway. You got to get out of the car anyway.
Right.
So face
Well,
the sidewalk.
Some people don't. So I've seen some
Well, then you
people-
must have very, very, very long arms.
No, they just get very, very close to the box. Okay, anyone else? So we could go into closed session. We have the minutes from the last closed session meeting. We have a list of individuals to be appointed to the Bridgeburg Secondary Focus Group. Do we need to go into closed session, or is everyone content with the names that were presented? If we don't need to go into closed session, then Councillor Lewis, I'm going to ask you to tailor that resolution. So instead of coming out of closed session, we simply approve the minutes and receive the confidential report and authorize staff to proceed.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christensen, that Council approves the closed session minutes of January the 12th, 2026, and 14.2, that Council receives confidential report PBBS 02/2026 regarding Bridgeburg North Secondary Plan Community Focus Group selection, and authorize staff to proceed as directed in closed session. And I should note that it was 14.1 that refers to the first that.
Right. Well done, Councillor Lewis. Good thinking, fast thinking. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That then takes us to notices of motions, and Councillor Dubanow, Councillor Lewis's motion has been deferred to February. Councillor Dubanow, you're on.
I am, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Noyes, whereas the town of Fort Erie, the Niagara Region, and the province of Ontario have experienced sustained and accelerated population growth, resulting in increased development pressure, traffic volumes, and demands on municipal infrastructure. And whereas growth and new development should be planned in a manner that integrates appropriately into the existing fabric of local communities, supports safety, accessibility, and connectivity, and delivers long-term benefits to both new and existing residents. And whereas the urbanization of roads, including but not limited to sidewalks, storm sewers, appropriate drainage, curbs, lighting, and related infrastructure, supports pedestrian safety, active transportation, accessibility, environmental management, and the orderly and cost-effective delivery of municipal services. And whereas incorporating such infrastructure at the time of development can reduce future costs to the municipality and residents while ensuring new growth contributes fairly to the communities in which it occurs. Now therefore be it resolved that Council directs staff to prepare a report outlining options to formally include policies requiring the urbanization of roads where feasible as part of new development applications within the town of Fort Erie. And further, that the report address feasibility considerations, variations between urban and rural contexts, and potential approaches for integrating such policies into the town's existing planning and development review framework, including alignment with the town of Fort Erie's official plan where appropriate. And if I may speak to that briefly, Your Worship. So this came about with some concern I had with some development applications that we received here at the municipality that fronted on to existing roads that were of a very rural, semi-rural cross-section. And we didn't, through discussions with staff, we didn't really have any formal policies to compel that kind of upgrading within our town policies. And I thought it was appropriate to bring this forward to start that discussion, to include that. And the reason being, during my first term of council, there was the subdivision is now built out, but we had received a development application for a new subdivision on Dominion Road. And at the time, I remember it was Rick Brady was the development, the director of Planning and Development Services, and I remember the developer didn't want to urbanize the road, and I thought, well, you know, what's the point of urbanizing? It's not urban on the other side, et cetera, and Mr. Brady made a very good point where he said if we don't do it now, when we can't get them to agree to do it now, it becomes exceedingly difficult in the future to do that, and when you do, it becomes that much more expensive. So I think I think this is appropriate to look at. Certainly, my opinion on growth and development, and it's always challenging to watch your community change and to watch aspects of your community that you're used to be different than what you're accustomed to. And my argument is that the trade-off for that should be that there should be something that benefits residents. So even if the change is there and you're not exactly keen on the change, you can look at something else and say, well, I'm not happy necessarily about this, but we're getting this, we're getting this, we're getting this. So, you know what, it's still a good thing to happen. And this is a perfect example of that. The last thing I'd like to see is to have a patchwork of subdivisions in our community with the existing road network that still have gravel shoulders and ditches surrounded by curb, gutter, and urban roads. I think that is not good for our community. So that's why I brought this forward, and I think council will support this because I have a good feeling on my colleagues, but I certainly look forward to the support and getting this moving forward, especially when the report comes forward.
Thank you. Any other comment? Councillor Christensen?
I, for one, will definitely support the motion. Councillor Dubanow, my ward has a lot of that type of challenge. And in fact, in the past has had some areas where there hasn't been the development, and other areas where I will specifically speak to an area of Thunder Bay Road where the people on the north side of the road have expressed repeatedly appreciation for what the previous council did in encouraging urbanization, one exception, but the joggers love it because they now can go out and they're not taking their lives in their hand in what's become a very, very busy road, so.
It's not as exciting, though.
True.
Yeah. No, and this is an excellent policy, and it will, if we get the recommendation for that, and it will assist staff. All those in favor of the motion? No one opposed, that is carried. Are there any notices of motion? Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to give notice of motion with respect to holding provision policies.
And returnable when?
Oh, when is our February council meeting, Your Worship?
Is it the 23rd?
If it's the 23rd, we returnable then.
Okay. Yep. Any others? Then we'll go to bylaws. Does anyone wish any of the bylaws removed from the package? If not, Councillor Flagg, you have first and second reading.
I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, a bylaw package containing 1/2026 to assume ownership and responsibility for the primary services of Bay Ridge Crossing, Subdivision Phase 3, Registered Plan 59M363. 2/2026 to assume ownership and responsibility for the secondary services for the Bay Ridge Crossing Subdivision Phase 3, Registered Plan 59M363. 3/2026 to provide for interim taxes for the year 2026. 4/2026 to authorize the mayor, acting mayor, or the treasurer or deputy treasurer to borrow certain sums to meet the expenses for the year 2026. 5/2026 to remove part lot control from lots 220, 221, and 222, Registered Plan 401. 6/2026 to remove part lot control from part of Block 1 Plan 59M 506. 7/2026 to designate part of 400 Central Avenue as being of cultural heritage value or interest. 8/2026 to authorize the entry into a memorandum of understanding with the Fort Erie Public Library for the use of electrical services, 89 Ridge Road, South Crystal Ridge Library. 9/2026 to amend bylaw 70/2018 name change, and 10/2026 to amend bylaw 135/2015 to update the delegation of authority for tax collection powers and duties are given first and second readings.
All those in favor? That is carried. The bylaw package is on the floor for any questions or comments. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a question about both bylaw 18.1 and 18.2. It's about assuming ownership and responsibility for primary services and secondary services. Two different things. I'm just wondering, what is our process to make sure that before we accept the ownership and the responsibility on a go-forward basis, that when was the last time we actually drove through and checked on a checklist to say, yes, the roads are fine, the sidewalk's fine? What's the process?
Acting Director Peasel.
To you, Councillor, what we're doing is we do deficiency checks. So when we're in the process of doing primary acceptance, we do a deficiency check and have all the assets checked.
Okay, and can I add to that question then? Okay, so when you do that check and when we approve it, what's the time frame for that? Like, I mean, are we looking at like, okay, I did it today and then 2 weeks later I'm going to approve it, or I've checked it out today, everything looks okay, but 3 years down the line is when we finally comes to council for approval?
Acting Director?
So when we do our deficiency checks, usually between primary acceptance and assumption is a 1-year warranty period. So when we note deficiencies within the system, the developer is given time to correct those deficiencies until another deficiency check is done and the deficiencies are corrected.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one question, I guess, to the clerk. When we receive the part lot controls from certain lots, it's very difficult for me personally to know where these lots are, and I find myself searching on Geopedia or something like that. I'm wondering if there's a way that this could be a little clearer for someone like myself that may not know the lots and so forth within the town.
So there, Rather than the clerk, I think that would go to the director of planning. But we used to receive memos with respect to this, and there were no memos for this. Can we not do that again so that at least it's identified and there's some explanation of why?
Absolutely, Your Worship, we can do that. And I had the same concern when I started looking into it because there is no plan attached to it. There is no location map. Absolutely, we can go back to our old way of doing it because that will be providing more information to council. Absolutely.
Councillor Flagg?
Nothing else. Thank you very much.
Okay, and if there aren't any other questions, we'll go to third and final reading. Councillor Noyes.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Flagg that bylaw number 1-2026 to 10-2026 inclusive are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And for the ratifying bylaw, Councillor Lewis, first and second reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Christensen that bylaw 11-2026 to confirm the actions of council at its meeting held on January the 12th, 2026, and its regular council meeting held on January 26, 2026 is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Christensen, third and final reading.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that bylaw 11-2026 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Are there any questions with respect to the confirmatory bylaw? If not, all those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to scheduling of meetings. Are there any meetings forthcoming? Councillor Noyes.
Yes, there's a meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock for the Accessibility Committee here in Town Hall.
That would be January the 27th. What time is that at?
4 o'clock in Committee Room 1.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Christensen.
Yes, there, excuse me, on Tuesday, February the 3rd, the Planning, Business and Bylaws Subcommittee, Business Subcommittee meets in Conference Room 1 on Wednesday, February 4th at 10 a.m. And that the PBBS is at 3:15 or 2:15. I'm sorry, change in time. On February 4th, the Seniors Citizens Advisory Committee meets in Committee Room 1 at 10 a.m. and the Ridgeway BIA meets at the Centennial or the Crystal Ridge branch of the library at 5:30 p.m.
Any other meetings? If not, then Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Noyes that council adjourns at 8:58 p.m. to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on February 23rd, 2026.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Thank you all.